conspiracy theory, and the paranormal meet. And now, we join the show already in progress with your hosts, Adam, Serfiel, and Rob.
Are you listening?
Hey, Rob, are you listening?
Are you out there, Rob?
Somewhere out there. Was that Feifel? You know what that was?
Yeah, American Tail. Yeah, they
Somewhere
were like,
out there.
They were
Maybe
mice
Rob
or
is listening.
some other assorted vermin. That
Since you've been gone, Rob.
Yeah. Since you've been gone. All right, so we're doing this a little weird on this show because we just did a Swapcast with the guys from Grimerica
Podcast swingers.
and yeah, we're
Sharing is caring.
swinging, doing that pod
Sharing
swapping,
podcasts. Pod swapping.
pod swapping. Yeah. You actually set this up. This was your idea.
Yeah, I've been a fan for a long time, and I thought, it's really cool how they've, carved out their own niche, and just like, I'm real inspired by their whole presentation. They're like, their contingency plans, how they're really, actively envisioning what to do in case of being deplatformed, and it's just a really great podcast that covers all kinds of paranormal and spiritual stuff, and also conspiracies. So, definitely wanted to link up. It's been a long time coming.
We also talked a lot about New Thought.
Yeah,
which
I was
apparently
surprised.
they're on that kick,
Yeah, it's
or at least Darren is.
it is the American creed, as Mitch Horowitz says, and by that it's a broader America, not just the U.S. So
Yeah. I hear you. So we have that interview, guys. It was about 2.5 hours, I think we were spent with them, something like that.
Yeah, we were hanging out for a while, man.
Yeah,
Talking shit.
So this is gonna be a long show. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this intro section, give our usual spiel, and then which is kind of how Grimerica does it. Incidentally, we've just fallen into their style on this one. But we do have an announcement that we want to make. So it's good that we're doing this now. We have put together a conference, and you'll actually hear this twice in this episode, but we have put together a conference that is going to be here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're calling it the Strange Realities Conference.
Strange Realities.
Yes. So we have the lineup, I believe, pretty much finalized at this point. Everything's up on Eventbrite now. And we've got, coming to this conference, we have Tim Banal is going to be there. Joshua Cutchin will be there. We've got Guy Malone, who you guys have heard on the show, and who Rob and I went to be part of his conference out in Roswell, New Mexico, back in 2017. We have our good friend Joe Damari, who's been on the show several times. He's going to be presenting his ghost hunting technology. And we've got Timothy Renner. So those are the 5 speakers that we have right now. Now, we are doing this conference at SIR Nashville. And we're going to have a big room, which is normally used for bands to practice in. But this can seat about 100 people. Safely. So we are selling on our Eventbrite site. Just look up Strange Realities Conference, and there will be a strangerealitiesconference.com that is under construction as of this moment. And probably by the time this show actually is posted, we should have that up. So you guys can go to strangerealitiesconference.com and you can actually find the Eventbrite link there and you can sign up. Also, that will be on conspirinormal.com as well, so you guys can find that. And I will also, every episode from now until October, I will be putting the Eventbrite link up for you guys to, if you want to join the conference, to come on and do it. The price is $30. That's prepaid. Now at the door, that will be $40. So if you want to come in, get a discounted ticket price from now in late July until October 19th, that will be the price, will be $30 online. Day of the conference, $40. It's going to go up by $10. So we're going to be doing a lot of promotion of this, guys. If there's any podcasts that are out there that would be interested in us coming on to talk about it, we want to do that. This is a good deal with a lot of good people. And we're also going to, at the end of the night, we're going to have bands playing, and we're kind of still sorting out that who's going to be there, who's going to play. But Nashville is a great place to come to in the middle of October. It's one of the most beautiful months here.
Oh, yeah.
And after you're done with our conference, you can go honky-tonk and do whatever you want to do. So that's the big announcement, guys. And actually, by the time this actually is going to post, you guys should have seen, if you're
well aware.
Facebook followers, you should be well aware of this as well. So just Strange Realities Conference. Other than that, usual spiel about Patreon, where you guys can find that.
As you're sitting there listening to this Conspirinormal podcast, in your chair, laying down, or perhaps absent-mindedly doing some chores. Okay.
Need some sound effects in there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do some post-production.
Some of those records we were listening to earlier.
Okay, you guys can go to patreon.com/Conspirinormal or Conspirinormal to make a one-time donation. Like Adam said, on the Patreon, we are going to be having opportunities to attend this event as well. We're going to be making some new material for that too, so check it out.
All right, guys. All right. So without further ado, here is our interview, our Swapcast with Grimerica. Thanks a lot. Well, I noticed that you've been listening to your ways to achieve success and that you're starting your Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, I'm trying to hypnotize myself into success.
So we've got a sponsor called, you may have heard of it, called ZipRecruiter.
No, I've never heard of it.
And you can further hypnotize yourself into success. And if you want to help us and help the show and ZipRecruiter, on behalf of our partner ZipRecruiter, here's why ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience, and actively invites them to apply to your job so you get qualified candidates fast. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. Thus, rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, and keep listening to your self-help records. ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, guys. Check it out.
Back to the show.
Okay, guys, welcome to special bonus episode Swapcast edition with Conspirinormal. Conspirinormal podcast. It's gonna be a fun one. We got Michael in the studio. We got Graham here. Conspirinormal podcast is in the house.
What's up,
We're
guys?
gonna have some fun, and we're
Hey,
live
hey.
on YouTube.
Awesome to talk to you guys.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you
You're
guys
gonna do a
too.
bio.
Absolutely. Bio?
So
Go, Adam.
yeah,
Yeah,
bio
I'll
yourselves.
start. So,
Since I'm a
Yeah.
somewhat new addition to the show.
So, I've always been into the paranormal since I was like a little kid, and about 15 years ago or so, was listening to Coast to Coast pretty religiously, and I knew that there was a way that you could get it where you could pay for it, but I didn't want to pay for it because I was really cheap. So I was looking for other shows at the time that you could find to listen to for free about the same topic. And I didn't even know really if anything like that existed. And I was listening actually to Coast that night, one night at work, and these guys were on called Ghostly Talk out of Detroit. and they had their own little show, and I looked it up and started listening, and of course this show was free, so so I'm like, this is great. This is a great thing to listen to. And as I listened to that, more other shows kind of came out, and like at that time, this is about 2004, 2005. There was no such thing as like podcasting. Really, podcasting wasn't even. I don't even know if the word was even around then. It could have been, but to me, it was just like a internet radio show. And through that show, Ghostly Talk, I found a couple of other shows. One called World of the Unexplained, and another one called Out There Radio, which all of these guys were like from where, our region in the South. And World of the Unexplained was one of my favorite shows to listen to. It's just like basically just like a grab bag of kind of like paranormal topics and conspiracy kind of topics. They had like the weirdest guests you could ever imagine. Like I remember there was one that they had with like the Highgate vampire, and they had these guys getting into fights over like who actually fought the Highgate vampire or some weird shit like that. And so I was like, man, I would always call into that show, and eventually I thought, man, I really love to do my own kind of show like this, but I really don't know how to really do it. And like at the time, it was probably really kind of more complicated than I think it is now. So I didn't really have a way to really get it set up. And a few years later, I started listening to this show, which is more kind of like a Christian-based podcast called Future Quake. And through a conference that I went to, I got to know the host of that. And so he eventually hung up his show, and I decided, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So about 2012, I went ahead and I started doing Conspirinormal. Had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I think my friends that I did it with, I think they thought that I was going to maybe just do it for like 1 or 2 episodes and then be done with it. And now we're on like episode 272. But we started off with the podcast with a good friend of mine named Luke. He was my original co-host. Eventually ended up doing it myself, and then had a guy join us a little later on, about 2 years later, named Rob, and he helped to really, improve the show. And right now he's no longer with us.
He's still alive.
He's still alive. Yeah. He's not. He's not. Yeah. He's not. He hasn't left the mortal plane, so to speak. But so this guy right here, Serfiel, was actually a listener to the show, and I guess he listened to my show and to you guys' show, and he and I guess we corresponded a couple of times. I knew he was here in Nashville. He was really big into. Well, you can kind of tell him how you got into that, like who you were looking for, and
how you
stumbled on this.
I was just kind of on my James Shelby Downard kick at the time, and so like I was listening to any podcast, reading anything about James Shelby Downard. They had a show with Adam Go-Rightly,
yep.
And then I got in touch with them, started hanging out, and came I was like a guest on or I was just a guest watching a show, I guess. Just
yeah, we put you on the
two.
We put you on the. I gave him like a 2-step audition process, where I put him on like the 200th episode as like a guy asking questions, just to see how he would do.
And now I'm in the band.
And then then we did like a book review or something like that, where I had you on as a quote unquote guest.
You did a hidden history of Nashville book
and so
review.
Then I was like, dude, do you just want to be on the show? And started on the show and was a co-host, and now he's like essentially producing it. Well, he is producing it, so
yeah. So that's how I became a part of this, and now I'm a permanent fixture. And now Rob's gone, and so it's just me and Adam now. We were talking about how it reminds us of those like pictures of Stalin they have, where they like someone gets blotted out, and then it's just Stalin and some other guy, and he's blotted out, and then it's just. I guess it's just me and Adam right now until he blots me out of the photo, and I end up.
I said that I'm gonna be blotted out. It's gonna be the Serfiel show.
No,
Serfiel. That's what it's gonna be called.
Hijack it.
Yeah, but
so
yes.
how many do you guys do a weekly show or?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do a weekly show. We don't do the live stuff like you guys do. I guess we could. I don't see any reason why we couldn't. But we just haven't really gotten into that. But we do a weekly show. We record it. Yeah. So that's what we do. We do we try to keep it like every week, and try to get like at least one ahead, so that we got, maybe if somebody's going on vacation, we get like 2 ahead.
Try to keep it guest based,
Yeah.
but we've been trying to do some just romper room kind of things lately, and just talk shit together, and
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That's the one we listened to on New Thought. It was really good. I went to the romp room. I listened to a couple of your guest ones, and then went to the romp room one to sort of get to know you guys a little bit. And yeah, it was great.
Cool. Appreciate it, man. We're wanting to move more into
I
that,
only
doing some
listened
more
to one,
analysis.
but it was good.
Cool. Appreciate it, man.
Those ones are just a lot of work, I find. It's like
The romper rooms.
even when reading the essays. I'm not. Yeah, I'm sure that's a lot of research and getting
Yeah.
ready for it, right?
Yeah, we do like
I'm
book
like,
reviews and shit, and then, but yeah, it's a lot of work, and just like basically it's like writing an essay. You gotta get all this info down. So
Yeah.
guests are a lot easier, but those are fun to do. We want to get
it's
better
like
at it.
cruise control.
Yeah, right.
Some guests I think are more
book reviews-
difficult than others, but
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
You were saying something about book reviews.
So we could do some book reviews.
No, it couldn't.
Could it be
You'd have to read the book.
audiobooks now? I'm listening to an audiobook a week.
We try to read we try to read the book from every person, every author that we have on the show. We
Yeah.
try to finish the book by
Yeah,
the time they get
me
on.
too. Yeah. I usually do
It's
it on
hard.
audio, or sometimes I'll download the PDF into a voice stream and just listen to it read the text to me. I try to do the same thing.
Takes a long time.
Handler's texting me.
I think having a grasp on the material is important, as far as asking informed questions, because I've actually have listened to podcasts where people, it's obvious that they don't read the book. You can kind of really
Is it
quickly
obvious
tell.
I don't read the book?
Well,
at
it's
least
different 'cause
at least
it's
someone
different
is
'cause
reading
I've
the
read it,
book.
so
Yeah, right.
And the authors really appreciate it too. They're always kind of like
Yeah, like Walter Bosley, he's the one that really appreciates that we take the time to read it. Well, I mean, honestly, for the longest time, it was just me really reading the books. But Serfiel, even though he really doesn't have to, he will read the books and get into the material. So I think it just really makes for a more kind of informed interview.
It's just so cool being a part of this now, because I just get to talk to all my favorite authors, explore all these weird ideas. It's just more than anything, it's just a great opportunity for me to be able to meet people and talk about all this weird shit. I never really thought I'd be in this position, so it's awesome.
yeah, exactly.
How'd you manifest that?
The hermetic power of New Thought. I saw it in my mind first, and manifested reality
This guy right here,
from
he's
the
got
mind of God.
He's really been on this 1950s salesman kick. We're thinking about starting a whole new counterculture movement to the guys dressing up like 1950s salesmen.
I think I can talk for a
talking-
second. I'm gonna grab
talking
something.
about their affirmations and all that kind of thing. What about you guys? How'd you guys get started in all this?
Well, I was listening to.
Graham
I've been
explain it.
interested in the paranormal and UFOs for a long time as well, similar to you. And I was listening to podcasts going back to probably shortly after they became known as podcasts.
Yeah.
And some of that was UFO paranormal radio or Blog Talk Radio back in the days. But then I found Mysterious Universe actually through a synchronicity.
Okay. Yeah.
With a guy that taught a UFO course. In 2000, I went to a UFO course in the mid 90s in a college. It was in a college.
Did you get credit?
Yeah. No, I don't think it was part of a program. It was just a course. It was like a night course.
Was there tests?
No, there wasn't. I don't think there was any tests. Anyways, it was pretty cool. And I was thinking one day about years and years later, I was thinking about the guy who taught the course. And I don't know why it came into my head, but I was thinking about him. I wonder what he's doing. And I bumped into the guy in a Starbucks 2 days later in a different city. And I approached him and he got all weird. And I was like, hey, I was just thinking about you. You're the guy that taught the UFO course. And he's like, what? He's looking at me like, and he said he doesn't really follow it anymore, but he listened to Ben Grundy. And then I searched Ben Grundy and found Mysterious Universe podcast. I was already listening to all these podcasts.
Yeah.
And then similar to you, I started calling in the Mysterious Universe a few years later. Darren's just cringing right now. And then I passed it on to him when I met him at work. And he got addicted to podcasts. And then the next thing you know, we're talking about ancient mysteries and going to conferences, and we decided to start one up on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys went to, didn't you guys go to the first Paradigm Symposium?
Yeah.
Did you guys go all the way down there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we drove like fucking idiots.
Drove like 20 hours to get there.
Damn.
Yeah, it was a long.
I've done a lot of long road trips into the States, but that was the worst one.
Yeah, it was like a 16-hour
It's like-
drive for us when we went to the third one was the one we went to.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like
so
20, but it was flat as a motherfucker, like all the way there and
I
all
bet.
the way back.
Yeah. There was no
so I
change
must have
in the
met you guys at
terrain.
the third one then.
What's that?
I was at the third one, I think.
Yeah, we must have met you guys at the third one then.
Isn't the third one when we had the whole little fucking booth set up? Like
No,
all the
no,
dorks in the
you
back
guys,
room?
That was
yeah.
the second one.
The third one.
That was the third one.
They did it at the Templar Lodge. They didn't actually do it at a hotel.
Yeah, wasn't that crazy theater room place? There was like
It's a-
stairs all over the place.
Masonic Lodge, right?
Yeah, it was a Masonic Lodge. Were you guys there? Because I don't.
No, we were there for the first three. I was there for the first three, I think.
Yeah, I was
But-
at 1 and 3.
Yeah, but not the fourth. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it the female lodge?
It was.
Was it the Hancock
It was a
one?
Masonic lodge. It was like a Templar lodge that was there
It wasn't
in.
the female temple lodge, eh? Hmm.
No.
Was it
no.
the Hancock one?
It was just called the Templar Lodge. There.
No,
in-
there was
in-
it
in
the Graham
Minnesota.
Hancock?
No, he
paradigm?
wasn't there. No. This
I
was
wonder
like
if that was before.
Lon Milo Duquette. This was the last one because I know they're
Okay,
not,
yeah,
we
I
just
know
the
they're
one
not
that-
doing it anymore.
So that was the fourth. That was the fourth year, probably then.
Is it the one that got
Okay.
rescheduled?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one that got rescheduled.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you went to the Paradigm Symposium.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know
How
really
was
what to
that?
say about the Paradise Symposium. Well, it was good. I got to meet Randall Carlson there, which
Oh,
was
nice.
really
Randall's
cool.
great.
Didn't really know who the guy was at the time. Had really no context of him, so he was just this kind of cool old guy that was presenting. Little did I know, like, actually how well known he actually is. So I mean, we made a lot of good contacts. I mean, I had a great time there, but it was really kind of. I don't think wasn't to its former glory. Let's just say that. That symposium, they really kind of shot their bolt a little bit with the first year, where they got just like literally fucking everybody that was in Ancient Aliens.
Yeah,
and
they never
spent a
caught up.
lot of frigging money, and it just constantly just kind of lost money. Like they didn't start small; they started big, and then went small.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonder how old Ramon's doing these days, man. He was a good little dude. Ramon, that was when I got to smoke a joint with Giorgio.
Oh, is that the guy that is like
Giorgio had no
Eric Von
fucking time for me.
Daniken's assistant?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
Ramon is Von Daniken's assistant.
Von Daniken, yeah.
Yeah. He was great.
So what was your Giorgio Zuccolo story? What
Well, first
There's
I
a
was
story
trying to talk
here, I
to
could
him
tell.
the first time, and he didn't really want anything to do with me.
Dang.
And then he came out after, and I was smoking a joint, and he was like my best friend, fucking instantly. He's like Snoop Dogg.
Aliens.
So then we
Yeah.
smoked a joint, and then he was like, he seen me in the hallway after that, and he like came over, and he's like, "Why don't you come up to my hotel room?" So I was like, "Okay."
Uh-oh.
So we went up to the hotel room, and I made him follow me on Twitter. And then after he unfollowed me again, motherfucker. Because he's never even come on the show. I mean, Von Daniken's come on, everyone else has come on, but fucking Giorgio.
Yeah, you guys been getting some pretty big guests, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah, but do you really want Giorgio Tsoukalos on your show, though, guys? I mean,
not anymore. But in the beginning, I would have loved to have him.
But you know what he's gonna say.
Aliens.
You know, you know exactly what he's gonna say. There's gonna be absolutely no surprise to what the man says or believes. It's like, well, what do you think happened? What do you think happened? I think it was ancient aliens. I don't know. Yeah.
They were assisting ancient man.
Yes. Yeah.
It's funny actually because I've been watching. I've actually the last week or so I've been picking away at. I downloaded the first season of Ancient Aliens because I really found the first two were pretty good, and then it just went like hard off the fucking rails.
Well, where are they now? They're like 16, season 16, or just something ridiculous.
Yeah. That's kind of what. I don't have cable TV, so I'm gone. But the first two seasons, you know, it doesn't have to be aliens, but there's just a lot of legitimate mysteries in those first like 15 episodes, and it's just like, you know, that's the mind bender I went down that's ended up turning into this podcast and became Grimerica eventually.
Right.
Was the first season of Ancient Aliens. I was just like, holy fuck, you know, and then I started listening to Mysterious Universe, and then we went to the conference, and then we came back from the conference, and then I was just like, yeah, you know, we could be doing what those guys are doing.
Yeah,
no reason we can't be doing.
Right.
And, you know, it's funny because at that time, Graham was like, you know, it's too late. And even RPJ was like, it's too late for another podcast. You know, you guys missed the boat. And I mean, I tell people today if they want to start a podcast that, you know, the podcast golden years are still in front of us.
Yeah.
Oh,
everyone should start a podcast.
You just got to cut out your own niche, you know? I mean, you guys have your own flavor. It depends on what happens.
Yeah, that's true, but it's going to depend on what happens with censorship, I think, and with licensing and all that. I mean, we're not going to be able to do this for too much longer the way things are going.
Oh, yeah. The internet will evolve. It always evolves.
Have to adapt.
Yeah,
no, I mean, it'll be on our own. This
guy is going to manifest us into the fucking Stone Age. I'm telling you. He's holding us back. We're going to get you a tattoo.
You can get your get your ham license, and you can maybe you guys can start a shortwave channel and just do it really old school.
We got James Nation. He's our handler, and he also helps out with some logistics. And he figures we can do something where we can do like a piggyback off everyone's Wi-Fi modem. So we could at least get to like Calgary.
Oh man!
And then see where we can get from there. If we could get Calgary, then maybe we'll have to move the studio to like under one of these old derelict fucking towers with all the things on them. We'll take over an old, because this is all, you know, probably post-apocalyptic. If we can't podcast anymore, something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
So then you might as well just go take over the old TV station or get the old van and start cruising around, and we'll do it fucking, what's that old movie called? Where they're just cruising around like doing radio on the fly. With this radio thing.
Is it pump up the volume?
That's it. Pump up the volume. Thank you very much. You know what? If you ever need a new podcast, you give me a call. This guy. No, just kidding. I'll trade him in for the world.
So
you still rent him out.
Right? I rent him out. Yeah, if you need a gram for a while, weekend, birthday party.
A gram? They need a gram?
A gram or two. I have another gram I can pull in a pinch.
So this leads me to ask you guys, because this is something we've been talking about too, and I don't think that we've talked about it as much as you guys have, but where all this is going with this whole censorship stuff, because there's a lot of things going on right now that really kind of worry me about what YouTube is doing, and Twitter, and basically all these, like all the gatekeeper sites that are really limiting what people can or cannot say or see or can or not see. I mean, it's getting a little concerning out there. I mean, like the latest stuff about Alex Jones. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about him or whatever, but you know, he's extremely buffoonish. now, and he's just like really gone off the deep end. Some of the things, in my personal opinion, but
I think he's got a coke problem.
yeah, I think so too. but restricting him and just
Can I get
totally
sued for
taking
that?
him off.
Allegedly, I was just joking.
Yeah, we're just joking, Alex Jones. Don't sue us.
Allegedly.
But yeah, him getting
We wanna
taken
get him
off
on
of
the show.
these platforms, it's a little disturbing. So, what you guys' thoughts on all this?
Well, what do you
My
mean? Is
thought
that
is
no?
to be-
Hang on, I want him to expand on that a little bit. Do you think that that's causing him to do that then? Like, is he losing it because of all this deplatforming? Is that what you're saying? Or?
To act more and
or
more.
is
Well,
he
no,
more
I'm
of
just.
a-
Well, I don't think I'm saying that. Although that, you could have a point there. I'm just thinking that, like, people are very divided on him. Like, people either love him or they hate him. But it's like that really shouldn't matter, considering that, like, should the guy be completely and totally removed and restricted for anything that he says?
No, I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I personally like the guy. I think he was right about a lot of things. I mean, look at the lying in the mainstream media. How can what he says be any worse than what's going on daily in the mainstream media?
Yeah.
Well, and
Constantly hoaxing shit. I mean, it's that's causing way more division than anything Alex Jones ever did. It's just he taps into the truth every once in a while, and I mean, people say he's a shill or whatever, and it's all a setup, but I don't necessarily buy it. I think that it's really affected. It could be affecting him personally as well as financially. I mean, just like all these other guys. I mean, I just saw, a thing with Stefan Molyneux, who's getting completely deplatformed now as well. And I mean,
Yeah, Alex
It's happening
Jones
all
is only
kinds of
just the
guys.
tip of the iceberg on this. I mean, there's so many other people that are getting deplatformed, and it seriously, like, it really worries me. Not that my YouTube channel has, we have like 530 followers right now because I was pretty late to the game on that. But, with the name Conspirinormal, is this like stupid algorithm just gonna
Right in the
kick us
crosshairs.
off? Just because of that
man,
name.
it's already doing it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it worries me too.
Our
man.
terrible SEO is finally paying off.
Well,
They
and
can't
like
find us. No one can find us. Well, the thing is, ultimately, I think they're doing it on purpose because they want to get regulated or nationalized or whatever. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Either that's going to happen, they're going to get broken up. But I mean, we're slowly moving in the direction of not being on them, or being on them for as long as you can. But, like, we're in the process right now of building a mirror of our entire back catalog for the podcast and having a backup RSS feed ready to go. Our website is about to migrate out of the U.S. into a server farm someplace else that's got good protection that we're not too worried about. So, we just go in the route of getting all our own servers and not going through any of those other places. Like,
That's awesome.
you can't be at whatever.wordpress.com or you're just asking for trouble, and you might get kicked out of iTunes and you might get booted off of Spotify.
Yeah.
But if you have your own hosted audio on your own server with your own RSS feed, you'll always be able to get your podcast out. So, I mean, like, we've just looked at that route and it costs more money. It costs a lot more money. But now all of a sudden, we'll be in the position in a couple of months here where we can start transitioning people over to a new RSS feed. And, eventually we'll have our own thing, kind of like No Agenda does, where we're just on our own server. So, sure, we might be out of iTunes one day, knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon. Or, but to me, those are all just search engines.
yeah.
So, okay, you can't find me in the search engine anymore, but if you punch this thing into your pod player, it's going to play it. Or if you punch it into the internet, it's going to pull up a web page that'll play the thing. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, I just count my blessings and our blessings that we've been out for long enough that we could ride the wave as long as we could. But ultimately, I think you should be looking
And that we're
at,
not big enough that it's affecting us
Yeah.
yet either.
well,
Yeah.
the people that are big enough should have enough money in the aside that they, they should be in the position to do it. I mean, if we can do it at our small size, and our guy says we could even be streaming our own video right off our own server. I mean, it's just going to be harder for people to find. So ideally, build your audience as big as you can before they get there. But to me, aren't I going to feel so much better when I'm there? And I'm not fucking thinking shit. I hope fucking, and especially now while I am
Right.
still small, we are still
Right.
small. We're not making a living. What about when you're making a living off it?
Yeah.
I don't want to think that, YouTube or Libsyn can just make me disappear. So, I'll get onto
Which
my
is
own
happening
servers
to
with
so many people
but-
right
but-
now.
Yeah, but
servers that are protected by, if we want to do something, we're going to court.
yeah, but it goes deeper than that though, and the problem really is the financial services. So it's we've seen the fucking Patreon messes and the PayPal stuff and the banks going after certain people because of some
It's the same thing, though.
activists going after the bank to get rid of some sort of supposedly right wing,
So then you got to
right-wing
find a
guy,
new
right-wing
bank,
company.
figure out a new way. I mean, that's the only way to
Yeah,
do
but
it is
that's-
to stay in front of it.
I know, but that's hard with you're asking for all this support to come through, channels that people use already. You can't just start, getting people to send cash in books.
Well, yeah, you
it's
can.
difficult.
That's the other thing. I mean, at the same time, your audience has to transition at the same time.
Yes.
And if the listeners aren't along for the ride, then you just don't exist
Well,
anymore.
that's a bigger picture.
Because-
is that it's the internet itself has become so app based that people don't even think about it. Like people who are a little older, like our age, do. As far as we came into the internet with URL based, way of exploring the internet where you can go wherever. But a lot of people are just stuck in apps, and I think they're going to be marketing, only app-based, limited internet in the future. So, I think the goal is really to do away with the whole idea of what we think the internet is, and to just be more centered in these apps.
I think I'm the opposite. I think it's about to do a huge reset. I think like within the 5 years that the Twitter and Facebook are going to get MySpace. It's coming. And
I welcome it.
I don't know what's going to happen with YouTube. They're getting into live sports now, which is interesting. I mean, I could see YouTube slowly transitioning into as television slowly disappearing. And, the television services, the cable services, the dish network services can't stay afloat anymore. So, and there's one thing that all those things are really good for, and that's live events. Sports, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's slowly what YouTube's going to turn into. So, I mean, the other thing we do in the background is we're on all of them. We're on DTube, we're on BitChute, we're on BitMovio.
There's a new one out. Yeah. Rizwan Verk made a new one. I don't know if you guys know about it.
Bitmove.io.
You should get on there for sure.
I mean, Jimmy Church is getting 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 views an episode on there. It's bitmove.io. So yeah, we actually emailed. They took care of the migration and everything for us. They've been fantastic. So, just extrapolate that content out wherever we can and get that back catalog. Was my biggest concern was losing the back catalog.
Yeah.
But I mean, now that that's in a couple of spots, I feel a lot better about it.
That's cool. I
And,
really admire those contingency plans you guys got. I mean,
Well, we're already seeing with the talk about like Facebook and Twitter getting MySpace. I think Facebook especially is going to be the one that's going to happen first, because you're already
Facebook
seeing,
is dying.
yeah,
bad
it
right
is,
now.
it is,
And the FCC is about to fucking nail
Yeah.
them for privacy violations on phone numbers and something else.
I mean, you're already seeing it's just like Facebook primarily now is a lot of older people. And this is interesting from a company that was so focused and geared towards young people in the beginning. Now it's become, your mom has a Facebook, it's people over 65 primarily are on Facebook. I mean, so I think that a lot of younger people are getting away from it and going to things like, ironically enough, like Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. But something is always coming up to replace these companies, and as much problems as Facebook has had, and a lot of the shit that has been done in, like, there are problems in the third world, and like there was this article that came out about how these people that all they do is they basically take stuff down off of Facebook all day. And they're working in like these just horrible conditions, even like physically, but mentally it's even worse, because they're sitting there and you're seeing all this shit just come at them. I mean, like they're watching people like
Oh,
people
could you
killing
imagine?
animals and people like
You gotta
killing
just
other
watch
people,
that all day?
and that's
Oh.
all you do is just take those
Just
type of
watching
videos
stuff.
down. So just like it is absolutely like psychologically affected these people. These people have PTSD from their job that they're getting paid like $15 an hour to sit there and watch this stuff on Facebook. I mean that
And on the
that
other
is
end of it,
unreal.
and on the other end of it, some other schmuck's making $15 an hour to program the algorithm.
Yeah, right.
See, it has affected us though too. I don't want to also be saying that it hasn't affected us yet, because we have seen shadow banning in iTunes, which is scary. Like the shadow banning in the US iTunes is scary. And then but what worries me more than our shows even and that kind of thing is just life. Like what's it going to be like in 10 years when you can't even criticize somebody because they like the Facebook's already said you can talk to you
Facebook's
can't talk
dead,
about
doesn't matter.
Alex Jones unless you're criticizing him. Like what the fuck is that? Like they're trying to actually control what we're saying. Like this is 1984 stuff fully. And I mean, I know people
I
are
don't
talking
think
about
Facebook
it and all that,
matters,
but
'cause Facebook's going to be
but
gone, and I don't
it's an
think
example
anything's
of one
going
of
to
the big
replace
tech
it.
companies.
I
So
don't
Google's
think
even
anything's going to
worse
replace
because
it, though.
Google is censoring things without even meaning to.
Well, yeah, that's a
So
huge problem.
that's a huge problem.
But I mean, they're in court. They're in the middle.
Maybe this is just a phase, you know. I mean, the kids are going to have to do something different than us. They're probably going to talk shit and be like, "Oh yeah, my dad, man, I used to share everything on the fucking internet. So stupid. We don't do that anymore." I mean, we might be able to make privacy cool. It's possible. I mean,
Well, I think it's
Or-
already happening. I mean, I think you're going to see that nothing's going to replace Facebook and these big social media companies. I see no evidence that people want them or need them. And I
Right.
think what you're going to see that replaced by is, right now it's not that people want or need them, it's that they're fucking addicted to them. And that's the only thing that they're hanging on to is they've got people fucking addicted. And as people slowly wean off of that, I think you're going to see them get replaced by micro communities. Discords, and what's the other one that people are always on is Slack, and there's about a dozen of these different, there's Mastodon, there's about a
They can't
dozen of
compete,
these
though.
different, well, they're starting to.
No,
I
they're
mean,
not, though,
I
really.
think who might end up being the winner of the day is fucking Gab. In 10 years we might be saying, wow, through all that adversity, Gab just kept coming back and saying, fuck you, we'll make it better, fuck you, we'll do that. And look at them now. They're about to take
Israeli
over
intelligence got
Mastodon.
their way again.
That could be a thing too. I mean, that's the other thing is maybe that's a whole backdoor scam. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, you're going to see 5 or 10 years from now. I don't think Gab being on top of the pile would be outside the realm.
Yeah, but
of
that's a
possibility.
long time to compete with these companies that have been they are monopolies and they're not just
But
private.
what's
They've been
Facebook
funded
doing
and
with their
subsidized by
monopoly
the
right now?
government.
Are you on Facebook?
No.
Are you on Facebook?
Look, Facebook is for businesses and communities. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people like small, like a midwife, for instance. They put it out to the community that they're looking for clients. Boom, that's your advertising right there. Facebook
Not for
is
long though.
No, I think you're wrong. I think you're totally. Do you know about LifeLog? LifeLog was the military's version of
Yeah, that was
Facebook.
They
before
got
Facebook.
shut down the day before.
But it doesn't
Facebook
matter.
started.
People still
The day
need to
started.
want to be on it.
Well, that's why they have to go on it. Like,
So
there's
but
no
your
other
average user
community.
age is 65 years old.
It's a complete and total MySpace. Like, if you want to know what's going on in your community, you go to the Facebook page.
I
I
don't.
don't, but I miss out on a lot of
So
things.
let's go.
'cause I'm
Do you
not
guys
on-
are you two on Facebook?
But now also,
Yeah, we
it's
both
the-
are.
we are.
It's
Oh,
also
yeah.
a market now.
I want it without.
wanna
If I
sell
wasn't making music,
something,
if I
you put it on
wasn't doing the podcast, I want to be on it.
Nah.
Yes.
Facebook's
Yeah.
on the way out. Those Facebook sells the buy and sell sites, or Facebook's on the way out. I mean, there's no other way around.
I would love to agree with you. I really would, but
That's
I think
okay.
you're wrong.
That's
No,
fine.
because they've got Oculus. They own Oculus, and they're going to be connecting everybody through VR soon. I mean, it's going to be a deeper level connection as well. And if it was started up by intelligence agencies
Yeah.
on purpose, like it was created the day after that,
Well, in
they'll keep
Pentagon,
it going and
the
keep
original
people
internet.
addicted,
Well,
even if there is.
here's something.
People on it.
Here's something interesting, guys, about Facebook. Now, this is a trend that I've noticed, and I actually did it. I did it today. Now down, of course, the Social Security number here. I mean, I guess you guys have something of an equivalence there in Canada, but when the Social Security system was invented in the 1930s, people were told this is not going to be used to identify you. Slowly but surely, and especially I guess with the advent of the internet, all of a sudden social security numbers were used for everything. You want to establish phone service, you need a social security number. You want to do this thing, you want to do that thing, you need a social security number. Now with Facebook, I've noticed that all these other apps, like I was looking at Airbnb today, you don't have to put in a login name and a password. You can just log in with your Facebook.
Don't fall for any of that shit.
And that just reminds me of exactly what happened with Social Security when it was said it's not going to be used to identify you. Now Facebook is being used to identify you.
And Facebook has your facial recognition information, so that's tied in more.
And this whole what was it last week when everybody was doing that stupid old face app,
face app looking old,
all that shit, like that was what we were talking about this ourselves. This is just facial recognition software. This is all this shit is. Every time that's put on. That's put on there, and the people doing like the was it the Throwback Thursdays or whatever, so they can get older pictures of yourself. Yeah, I mean it's just all.
Which the facial recognition stuff is going really fast in America. And there's like pilot cities, like already in Detroit, they've got a real extensive system. Chicago's geared up and has all the stuff purchased. But basically, they're just you can put in the surveillance systems first. And everyone's like, oh, these are just cameras. They're not identifying everybody. But then they go for the contracts with the companies who can use that video data to use the facial recognition. So that's a real hot topic right now. And in particular, in Detroit in this last year, it's really came out how extensive it is and how little public oversight there was. It's even integrated into the live police body cams and shit. And drones. It's really bad. It's like the Xinjiang right now is really we talked about that too on I think on the Romper Room, but
it was a Patreon.
That's kind of like the real test pilot for what can be here. Very soon. It's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, and that's total control. I mean, the Chinese have basically built this. Each city in this territory in the western part of China, which is primarily Muslim, they have basically built these high-tech concentration camps. Well, it's not just that they're concentration camps. Each city is kind of its own little concentration camp. And they're using all this kind of facial recognition software that is being basically designed by the tech companies here in Silicon Valley.
There's ties to MIT too, and it's...
Yeah. So they're being used as like this, as a test market for all this shit, because you can get away with it over there because you're talking about an authoritarian government.
Is there anything in Canada similar as far as the facial recognition stuff? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Probably.
Can I just read you the Wikipedia for LifeLog?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. LifeLog was a project of the Information Processing Techniques Office of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency.
DARPA.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you 100% that Facebook is owned by the government.
I've heard that it was actually, before it was the defense, it was just ARPA, the original before.
That's the internet, ARPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the U.S. Department of Defense. According to its bid solicitation pamphlet, it was to be an ontology-based subsystem that captures, stores, and makes accessible the flow of one person's experience in and interactions with the world in order to support a broad spectrum of associates, assistants, and other system capabilities. The objective of the LifeLog concept was to be able to trace the threads of an individual's life in terms of events, states, and relationships. And it has the ability to take in all of a subject's experience from phone numbers dialed and email messages viewed to every breath taken, step made, and place gone. And that was in quotes.
And that was back in 2007, maybe?
I remember when it was a big deal. I remember it being in the news that was a big deal and people were against it and just like, holy shit, are you kidding me? And they ended up having to supposedly shut it down, coincidentally, the same day that Facebook was launched.
Yeah.
So this
I don't care who owns it. I just don't think that people want to use it anymore.
Yeah,
but they'll figure it out.
They have to.
And as far as like maybe in the US, Facebook is winning the second-hand market, but in Canada, nothing's coming close to Kijiji.
Which is eBay. Kijiji is eBay.
Yeah.
Which I think Google owns, right?
No.
Oh, I don't know.
No, eBay's different. It's like one of the number 5. I think eBay's the
Google
number
owns
5
eBay.
company.
So it's basically your marketplace will be either Facebook
Google or Amazon. Google or Amazon.
I don't know. I know in my life circle, I'm down to about 50% of the people that I know that still have Facebook. And I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was probably closer to like 95% saturation. So I don't know. I'd be surprised if people are still using Facebook in 5 years. 10 for sure.
I think a lot of people use it reluctantly now. They have an account, and a lot of times it's not even
I
their
haven't had an
real
account
name.
for 5 years.
A lot of people understand to be very careful with it.
So I just log in with my passwords.
I've tried to
I use my
delete it
email
several times, and it's still there.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Mine's
you can quote unquote cancel your Facebook, and all that information is still going to be there. It does. I mean, it's never.
Oh
really
yeah,
gonna,
that's right. I
never
mean, you've
really
already
going to
fed
go
the
away.
beast.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's no reason to just keep going.
Well, I mean, I deleted it and canceled it, and it says if you ever want to come back, all you have to
don't
do
go
is
back.
log in.
Yeah.
All you have to do is log
Just
in.
don't log
That's it.
in.
No, I don't log in, and people tell me, "Oh no, yours is up. It's there."
Oh, mine's definitely not, because usually after I delete mine, people text me and ask if I blocked them.
The main problem is that we can't even we're not going to be able to question certain things soon, right? We can't question, vaccine safety or global warming or whatever the conspiracy, whatever the thing is. There's some third rail topics that we can't even talk about anymore. So eventually, it'll just be.
Well, I was listening to you guys' interview with Michael Shermer, and it's interesting that you guys agreed a lot with Shermer on just these kind of basic things. And I would say that him being a skeptic, I guess lends him also to being distrustful of government and their promises, and maybe like the intelligence agencies and their promises, and the tech industry and their promises. So, we're really kind
You
of.
would hope so.
We're really kind of facing, though, I think, things have gone so crazy, and I don't know how crazy things are up there, but things have gone so crazy since the election of Trump here that, I mean, you literally cannot, I think, question really anything anymore, and you got to we always have to kind of dance around these subjects, because you don't want to really offend anybody, or you don't want to, and it's really, I think.
So you're self-censoring already.
Yeah. Well, I find myself doing it all the time, because you don't want to. You
I don't
really
notice
don't
a
want
lot
to
of it. I'm in construction in Alberta.
spark this.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of self-censoring.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we don't have quite as much political discourse as you, and I think that's where you really run into trouble. I mean, the one thing I've noticed actually is when I do open my mouth is that more people are actually on board than you think. Like, I remember the one day I was in the stairwell talking to a coworker. We were bitching about vaccines, and like a couple of drywallers came around the corner, and they're like, "Yeah, fuck vaccine." It's just like, that's the kind. I mean, it was the same thing in the States, though. I mean, we just went down to the States. And it's kind of like, I feel like most of that shit is online.
Yes.
We went all the way down to Colorado and back, and I just had the greatest time. Everyone, the nicest people. I wasn't wearing a Trump hat. Maybe that would have made it different. But I just feel like a lot of that hate is online, or wherever cell phones are poked out, or even these like Antifa rallies are like, sure, they're happening in the physical space, but they're like a percolation of something that's overflowing from a bunch of people online.
Yeah.
Planning rallies, planning to fucking basically start a fight on Twitter. I mean, that's what it is. Hey, let's all go meet up in fucking Portland and beat the shit out of each other.
It makes real marginal groups appear a lot bigger than they are. And, when people actually meet in real life, there's a lot more tendency to try to meet in the middle and see where each other comes from. But yeah, online, everyone's just, it's more conflict oriented, so things look a lot worse.
But yeah, I mean,
Jack should just delete Twitter, and they'll give him the Nobel Peace Prize.
it
Oh,
looks it looks tribal,
Yes.
you know, and our politicians here are just playing to the tribalism.
Well, and I think that's a fucking part of the screen. That's a part of the Twitter. That's a part of the Facebook. Like, it's not like that when you go downtown and I gotta fucking look at you in the face, you know?
Right.
And it's like, you know, and it's not even that if it's someone's bigger or smaller or tougher. It's just, you know, it's hard to look at another human being in the face and call him a piece of shit.
Right.
Unless you're a bad person, you know, or unless I guess you can get that mob mentality or whatever, but, you know. That's kind of what I'm talking about with these social networks, where I don't see any evidence that they're good for people. And I think the people in the science are starting to catch up. I mean, it's fringier now because these people have a lot of money to fight it with. But, you know, I don't know, maybe I have too much faith in humanity.
I think the generations are going to change it. I mean, like I said, I think that this next generation will have to define themselves against us, and in order to do that, they will have to. I think there's going to be a lot less sharing. I think this is just kind of a cultural phase. Like, I think they're going to want their own little underground.
Maybe we should,
you know.
Maybe we should ramp it up for a couple of years, though, just to ensure that happens.
Well, Brisson was talking all about the Overton window with that. So yeah, you could push it really, really hard.
Yeah, we'll just all just start having cameras. Everyone's live streaming
back
all
in
of the
other
time.
Direction, even farther.
And
That's really
and they're
interesting.
just like, oh my God, shut it all off. Fuck, hit the EMP. But I don't want to go quite that far.
Yeah, no, because it could go the opposite of what you're thinking, though. You know, it could go the opposite, where instead of people stop sharing, it could be just there's no more shame and everybody just knows everything about everybody. I mean, that's the way I feel like.
I mean, if they're seriously talking,
what you have to do.
Well, if they're seriously talking about universal basic income and things like that, people are going to need shit to do. And with this virtual reality stuff, I mean, is that what this new sharing is going to be about? Actually living other people's lives, this science fiction world. And that might be it. I mean, what the hell are people going to do? Just sit around all day? I don't want to be me. This sucks. So the government just gives me the stipend because there's no fucking jobs. It's all robots. So I'm just going to plug in and be this, like, you know, superstar all day, every day. And, you know, that's the apocalyptic vision that I think is bad, going the other way. Like,
yeah, you get your Libra tokens in there and you can spend them on upgrades, and that's all you need.
You'd be so happy with that. It's like D&D in real life.
Fuck
You'd
yeah,
be on cloud nine.
there.
Graham just wants that.
Just give me my UBI and put me into
you need it to be
Dungeons
a good
and
AI
Dragons world, and
so that it just fucking automates everything and just, you know, lets you just find Zen.
Since we're kind of talking about all this, what do you guys think about the Silicon Valley elite and their plans for the future, transhumanism, things like that? I don't know. Have you guys read or heard of that American Cosmic book yet? That made a lot of waves in the community. And
oh yeah.
I don't think they're fucking anywhere near as close as they think they are.
Right.
And even the stuff that I don't know about, I just, you know, I think they can do a lot of stuff to manipulate us and control us, and they've pretty much got us figured out on how we're wired. But I think making a human is harder than they think.
Yeah. But do you think they're trying to create a new religion pretty much around technology?
I think science is a new religion already. I think technology would just be like the Jesus of it, I guess.
Oh, technocracy.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We're definitely moving in the technocracy.
That's their global. That's the way they can get to global government, really, I think.
But
Except
the thing is, I mean, I think it's all, you know, the more I talk to guys like Randall Carlson and shit, it's just like, whatever. We got, you know, it's like maybe another 1,000 years till we get smacked by something and all the shit shuts off anyway. So humanity has a chance, you know, even when the machines are running everything and we're like, oh my God, we've made a huge mistake. You know, we get hit by a couple of big rocks from space. We live off dead rats for a couple of
1% of us survives. And
we repopulate the earth, hopefully smarter. Because, I mean, sometimes it looks like whatever got wiped out or whoever got wiped out, you know, at the Younger Dryas was maybe had their shit together a little more than we did. Or maybe not. Maybe all their satellites and porn servers just got destroyed.
Yeah, they were.
Possible. It happens every 12,000 years.
You imagine you just find a crystal in a cave and it just turns out to be a bunch of porn.
They were trying to live stream it. They were trying to take a picture of it, put it on Twitter, this big light in the sky, and then it just... Feed went dead.
That's how it ends. Yeah, you find a way to get the crystal to play, and it's just pouring. That ends with the end of the world. Bang,
So are you guys more kind of into the whole like ancient civilization idea than like say like ancient aliens idea?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
mean,
like both.
That's
like
where
both.
we are too.
I like both, and I don't even rule out both. I mean, we were just talking to Scott Wolter, and he was almost saying like he had a smoking gun for it.
Yeah.
But I think that we, humans just have a way more complicated past than we think, and I think, just because what I like to think is that the last time around, because you could see how, and it kind of goes back to what you guys were talking about with the new thing and how, new thought, how it was used for, selfish success or monetary gain. And, maybe that's how it is right now, but that's just in this zeitgeist. And I don't think that sort of ability to subtly affect reality is, maybe
Is new.
it's not made for this zeitgeist. I mean, humans probably aren't made for this zeitgeist. I mean, I don't know how we ended up here, but, I think it's subtle. I mean, you can use it, and there's ways to hack it to do that sort of thing. A lot of the older stuff before like The Secret and all that, a lot of the older stuff talks about how, the important pieces are adding value and being of service before you do anything else. Those are the first two things you need to think about. But, I think it's just more of when you go back to when, like, especially the Hermetic stuff, it's just like it was a different world. It was less about, there was less of a reason for me to have a bunch of money in the bank. It was kind of useless to me when we weren't even really farming a whole lot yet. We're mostly just like, a bunch of money's no good when I need to go out and get some fucking deer or some fish, or, it's more community based. And I think it's kind of that's sort of what was sort of based in it. And it's kind of like that. Well, I lean towards the simulation end of thing, but it's sort of that same idea where they say you can kind of go into the spirit world, and that's the underworld, and that's where you can do the shamanic healing. I kind of spin that onto we're living in some sort of simulation, and you can just sort of start to subtly affect it. And I mean, the reason I think most of that stuff works, I mean, you don't even need magic for it to work, because it can work.
No, it is magic.
But but I mean, even in a world without magic, we've got experimentation that shows that just doing those sorts of thought processes will gear you towards it. It'll maybe you stop watching TV for 6 hours a night, 7 days a week, and you'll do something productive with that time because you just change that thought process of trying to get ahead in life or trying to be productive. So it's like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to fucking rewatch every episode of The Office again, and I can do this, that, or the other. I kind of lost where I was going with that.
Do you know where he was going, Michael?
The new thought that I've read, I kind of synchronistically inherited a box of New Thought books.
Oh, cool.
And
Is that the box you showed us before CAC 2011?
Yeah,
Or
and I've only kind of just briefly looked through a few of them, but for the most part, it's
Think and Grow Rich, Power Positive Thinking, Psycho-Cybernetics, all that good stuff.
Yeah, Theron Q. Dumont.
Think and Grow Rich is one of my top 5 books of all time.
Oh yeah, it's great. I brought some. I've been collecting a lot of these like New Thought and Businessman records. I think since we got a visual component, I can show some of this. I just got this yesterday. Old Norman Vincent Peale, of course. What It Takes to Be a Real Salesman.
I'm actually in the middle of rereading The Power of Positive Thinking right now.
Okay, cool.
Because you know what, I think that the Bible, a lot of it's sort of in there. It just kind of got spun around too. There seems to be this weird ability to, I mean, that's the same thing. Like, I think it's all the same thing, whether you want to call it magic, intention, manifestation,
or just like the role of the observer in physics. I mean,
yeah, that all placebo effect. The nocebo effect. That's what I think it all is.
No, it's deeper than that.
To me, it's understanding.
But they're all sort of different
fields,
flavors of it.
Understanding the subtle fields that aren't really taught anymore, that have been removed from the mass psyche. And when you understand more of the subtle fields, then you can kind of slip in and out of things, and you have the ability to do things that most people don't even know exists any longer.
Yeah, especially, I mean, when I just even think to fucking back to like, 15 years ago, Darren, man, that dude was like a different fucking species. The chances that he's starting a podcast or building a business or trying to be an entrepreneur and that are fucking zero, because, it just doesn't exist. And if it weren't for some events that took place in my life that, caused me to reevaluate things, I could easily see how I could have, and a lot of people get stuck in that sort of rut forever. And I think, in a lot of ways, that's sort of by design. You get sort of taught that, all you need is a decent job, that you make a decent wage and maybe get some good health care coverage. And, that's kind of, you got to go to school, get a good job, and that's kind of the mantra that you go with. And that's what the mantra that you come out with. And that's why you end up with an army of fucking robots just going to work every day. I mean, in Canada, it's interesting because you look at, I can't remember the exact number. You'd think I use the example enough that I would know the number by now. But the amount of like small business owners in Canada is overwhelmingly, like past half, immigrants or people that dropped out of school.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they get better loans. They get lots of subsidies.
Well, yeah.
They get lots of subsidies.
Aside from
stuff.
that, it's also like even like an
Government
immigrant fella
assistance.
I work with. He's like, well, he's just like, that's part of our education process.
Yeah.
He's like, we get taught
that's part
that
of it too,
working
yeah.
for someone is a temporary thing until you can do your own thing.
Yeah.
And it's like in Western education, that's not even a
Yeah.
thing, man. It's like our education system is bought and paid for by the corporations.
And they don't take that for
Want us
granted.
to work for them.
They don't take the opportunities to, like in a lot of Western countries where you can just, get a bank loan and start a business. They're not taking that for granted, like most of the people living there already.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where there's a lot of room for that, so those sort of new thought books. And even if there's no magic in the world, which isn't my outlook on life, I think there is room for magic. But even in a world with no magic, people like Lynn McTaggart's intention experiments show that, those affirmations and those thought process of saying I can, I will, whatever it is, even with no magic, it can subtly affect because you've got that in your head. So now, when you get off of work, maybe instead of saying, fuck, I can't do it, I'm just going to watch the ball game. You're like, you know what? Maybe I can do it. I'm going to try and write that first chapter, or I'm going to write the outline for the book, or,
Or meditate or exercise or whatever it is.
I'm going to go for a jog. I'm going to do some small step to try and make my life better. And, and I think Peterson kind of slips into that in a few ways too. I mean, he's got some bigger political pictures Scott Adams.
Systems instead of the process.
Scott Adams' book, How to Fail, is probably it's one of my top 5 books of all time as well. But it's interesting. I mean, there's something going on. I mean, it's interesting when you start thinking about how the universe is laid out with all the fractals and everything else, and who are we talking to? Who's talking about that's kind of how compression works for compressing video.
Yeah, it was Marshall Efforts
and audio.
Right?
Is like that's the same sort of thing. All your audio and video that you're uploading to YouTube is made in these sort of fractals, so it can be easily expanded and contracted.
Yep, that's right.
It's the buckyball, right? It's that sacred geometrical shape that's perfect for compression and expansion, and it's fractalized everywhere. That's what made me really trigger about the thoughts. Like your thought is energy. When you have a thought, it's got a shape and an electromagnetic thing to it, and it's going to resonate with something else.
Here you go. I got the Buckminster Fuller Speaks.
That's awesome.
Oh, nice.
I love it.
Had to pay a pretty penny for that one.
Wow.
Bucky
That's
Foley.
a great collection. So, Michael, what about some of those other new thought books you found in that box?
I don't know. Some of them are just like how to understand your energy field and then how to expand it and use it in different ways. I need to read more of that. I've probably only gotten like 3 or 4 chapters. It's really weird though when I read it. It almost seems as though it's not that I wrote it, but I can almost like intuit like what's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird how they're powerful. There's a lot of powerful info in there, and it is very cultish. So you have to like tread lightly and keep yourself aware the whole time, but
Daydreams are dangerous.
But I do kind of agree that, a lot of things, I kind of believe that a lot of it comes from the teaching of the Buddha, because he really supposedly spent a lot of time observing himself and the nature of reality and consciousness, and then had a few grand epiphanies because of it, and then spent another 40 years teaching those epiphanies, basically, in this technique, so that you could do it too. And once you've learned that technique and practiced it, then you can begin to see where so many things in the world kind of are taking a bit of that piece and then twisting it a little bit and making money off of it. And there are lots and lots and lots of things that are like that. And because it's a good method, you know, you could totally, anybody could use it. It's universal. That was the whole thing. So for me, a lot of those types of things are, I mean, I can think of a few, but I don't really want to go into it too far.
But that's where the Buddha's mindfulness and concentration comes into play. Like, for me, that's the foundation of all the stuff we're talking about. Is if you can't concentrate on anything for more than 2 seconds, what are you going to manifest?
Yeah,
right? If you have some
Yeah.
concentration practice, which I think comes before mindfulness in a way, or no, mindfulness leads to, for me, it leads to concentration.
Well, for the most part, what I understand, there were 3 techniques. One of them is concentration. You
I think
practice
that's
that.
older. I think that's more Hindu, the actual
That's
concentration.
right. He learned, it was one that he learned. And the one that he, his epiphany was Vipassana. So it was experiencing the mind's connection to the subtle body that's left in his imprints in the physical body. And you do that through observation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, to me, it's like you have a rod of energy and you have a ring of energy that goes around it that is your mind. And when your mind is focused to a certain amount, then you can begin using this to
Project, or
well, one way to describe it is like in metallurgy, where you're trying to get a pure rod, you have to have a pure ring that goes around that rod, and it pulls the impurities out of that rod. That's how they do that, I guess. So
sounds alchemical.
It's exactly that. And from doing Vipassana and then having these books inherited from a Vipassana teacher's house, which I don't think she actually has anything. I don't know that she even read them. I think it was her husband that died. But anyway, it's a pretty wild thing. And I think everybody should at least learn the technique, you know, take the 10 days, the time to do it, because then it's a universal technique that so many other things you become aware of. And the third technique is then how to give unconditional love and compassion for all of humanity. And once you've focused your mind and purified your mind to some extent, you know, to whatever extent you can afford to invest your time and energy into, then you can give more pure, unconditional love to the world. That was the teaching of the Buddha.
And those monks can like change your body temperature and shit.
Well, yeah. Once you learn to concentrate and then focus and be able to move your energy,
You can move
around.
blocks.
Wim Hof's basically a monk.
fucking move blocks.
Wim
I mean, that
Hof
dude's
is
changing-
fucking build
is an
pyramids.
excellent example.
He's changing his body temperature while he's hooked up machines. He's curing himself. That dude's curing himself with his mind and changing his body temperature with his brain. So, I mean, it's not
To me,
ruled
that's
out
what
that,
New Thought is.
that we had some sort of fundamental sixth sense before we started getting fucking hyper distracted and beat down with responsibility.
Well, the AI wants to keep you totally so that you have no idea. Or
That's why we need the
any
good
time
idea to help. The
observing your
good
mind.
AI. This is just a phase before the good AI puts us on the cloud so we can all become enlightened.
Right. Well, you're getting exactly to what, when me and Adam read American Cosmic, we were seeing hints of this kind of new religion being created among the Silicon Valley elite. And then also these hints of, I guess, you know, for lack of better words, ghost in the machine of a lot of these elites thinking that they are in contact with something else. And then you know, you can go way off the rocker to like Alex Jones's spiel about these clockwork elves and shit like that. But I mean, Vallée was hinting at the fact that there is strange psi phenomenon around technology. So are we piercing the veil with this technology and quantum computing? And if we are making machines that are becoming conscious, are they from somewhere else? Are we opening a gate. I mean, who knows? That's the type of things I'm really fascinated by right now.
Pasuka also comes at it from a very Catholic point of view as well. I mean, she talks a lot about the Catholic Church in it, and so she's informed by that. And I think what could be going on is that there's maybe an actual concern by the Catholic Church and some maybe other people that maybe in Silicon Valley itself that are actually concerned about possibly where transhumanism is taking us, and that they may be, and I think this might be through like Ions, through like Edgar Mitchell and guys like that they may actually be wanting to use this kind of like more interdimensional aspect of the UFO phenomenon and use it maybe as some kind of alternative religion to kind of to serve as a counterpoint to transhumanism.
Well, that's that, and that brings me to what's going to be the trump card for globalism is the blue beam and the fake invasion. Like that's going to be the new religion that comes out that brings the globe together, man.
Yeah, that was
going to happen.
That's what was
the aliens to finally show up, and Graham's not going to believe it. He's going to be like, no, you're a government show.
The original plot of, now they changed it from the movie, but the original plot of Watchmen in the graphic novel was this fake alien invasion to bring the world together. Wow. In the movie they changed it to Dr. Manhattan, destroyed New York or something, but that's not in the original comic book. It's an actual fake invasion of, and I mean from space.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. And then that also makes me think about my little theory on the deep state thing, which was, Podesta and Clinton were supposed to be the disclosure team, and that whole advocacy group is so pissed off that Trump got in, and then Trump, as soon as that U.S. Navy video came out and the New York Times started not making fun of this anymore, and Trump started Space Force. I mean, I think he's also trying to get ahead of this whole thing, and I think it's going to be a race to what Michael was talking about earlier tonight about patenting the technology and then shooing it away somewhere so they can say that the whole alien thing has also been solved. I mean, that's...
To me, it seems like there's two forces. One is pushing them to put this out so that it can be free to humanity and begin to unlock a lot of problems. You won't need combustion engines, for instance. You won't need to have 90% line loss with these massive towers that go all over everywhere. I mean, you'll fix a lot of things by having that.
Hopefully it's still an option to just like have an old Peter Ford to take down a grocery store on Sundays. You can still use gas on Sundays.
They're really pushing now in the narrative, and To the Stars Academy is also somewhat pushing this, I think, is where they're really pushing the interdimensional aspect instead of calling them extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
So they're really pushing the spiritual aspect of this phenomenon more than saying that it's a material thing. And in one way, I think that's good, because I think that's exactly where we need to be going and how we need to be looking at the UFO phenomenon from that viewpoint. But at the same time, I'm distrustful of it. What are they actually setting up here? Like, why are they using it? In that
you're
way.
Back to angels too, right?
Yeah,
angels and demons.
You just kind of go back.
Fine.
You're just using it. Then, I mean, if it ends up being interdimensional, then it's game on.
Yeah.
Everything's
interdimensional.
interdimensional.
Yeah.
That all the paranormal experiences become explainable.
Yeah, it's a catch-all.
So where's the stuff can be
encountered? We were actually talking about that. How all the different, you can't actually leave your own solar system because. How all the precessional numbers seem to be baked into our reality.
Yeah.
So if a different solar system has a different precession, can you actually go to it?
It has a different sacred geometry.
It's actually a different dimension. So all these solar systems that we can physically see, we can't actually,
unless
you can't get to it unless you're transversing dimensions.
But wouldn't a wormhole kind of be able to transcribe you, sort of?
I don't know. I mean,
the sacred geometry might measure up. If you start
way past my physics ability of just saying that.
If you start measuring it out, though, it might end up being the same numbers. I mean, you don't. There's that option as well.
You don't know the math on interdimensional wormholes?
Well, maybe it is, but I mean, it just seems weird to me that the numbers. I mean, that's another thing that points to intelligent design is that. the numbers of our precession and our solar system seem to be baked into reality. And, you know, we've got these strange rules of 108 that are baked into our reality. And it's just, you know, it seems...
maybe the numbers create your reality.
Well,
They are just thoughts.
Well, that's the
and
other thing.
ideas.
Is it possible that...
Like you think in the 10, you think in 10 base, right?
That's what I was trying to say
Yeah.
before.
So if you thought in 6 instead, you would see everything totally different.
Yeah, maybe, but it's still not going to change the ratios. Like a moon being 108 moon diameters
Well,
from
you have to
Earth,
see what the math was on
and the
this,
sun
so-
being 108 sun
Yeah.
diameters from Earth, and then the Earth being 109 times smaller than the sun, which just seems to be, it's probably 108. We just can't measure the fucking
It's
sun quite
certainly
properly.
improbable. Yeah.
It starts to lead into that, and it's like more and more people are saying, well, it's simulation. It starts to become, you know, more and more high profile people are saying that, and then the more I think of that, I mean, then, you know, that just brings us right back to intelligent design.
I think it's
And
an
that's what I thought
excuse.
of when you say, because if it goes that, then all of a sudden angels and demons are back, and then all of a sudden, oh shit, it's probably a simulation. Okay, so that means someone made it. We're on an intelligently designed reality.
Well, and it seems like in the media, I mean, I just got done watching the new Twin Peaks series, and now I'm on the Stranger Things, and it's like a lot of these ideas of contacting the other seem to really be in our popular culture right now. I mean, like Twin Peaks really messed me up. I mean, I was watching it every night before I went to sleep, and it's just bad. But now I'm on the Stranger
ones?
Things.
I didn't watch any of them.
Oh, dude,
Stranger Things is awesome. The new Stranger Things is fantastic.
I don't watch any of them.
have you guys watched it?
I've never liked either of those.
Have you watched the new
I don't
Twin
watch
Peaks?
anything.
Like
No, I haven't watched the old or new Twin Peaks.
I watched the new Lion King.
the new Twin Peaks
It was
is
just-
like total.
It's like cartoon.
The new Twin Peaks is like totally this like Typhonian magic shit. It's terrifying.
Kenneth
It's got
Grant
all
stuff.
kinds of Kenneth Grant shit in it.
Yeah.
Like, and we are warned. I was
Oh.
warned that by our friend Ren, and it's pretty deep, man. If you're somewhat steeped in the occult and you watch that, you're just like, holy shit, the whole thing just feels like a spell. Like it's nuts.
Yeah,
You
so
should
who's
watch it.
watching all this? Like,
I don't know.
are
Yeah, I
they
gotta
really
watch it.
Well, these
casting
guys
a
watch
spell
it.
on
He watches
millions of
it.
people?
Well, we had Jay Dyer on, and that's what we talked about a lot. I mean, he's coming at it from a pretty religious standpoint, but
Yeah,
it's
Oh,
real
by the way.
interesting.
it is for sure. I can't watch a lot of it. Like that one Netflix thing where the girl keeps dying over and over.
Oh,
And over.
I don't watch any.
That's just not good. For
I don't
you.
watch
Like,
Netflix anymore. I'm done with Netflix.
I don't know. I have a really hard time watching anything these days.
I like the
I'd
new
rather-
Mary Poppins was excellent.
Oh, Jesus. I'd rather watch that type of stuff with the occult symbolism than the social justice warrior stuff pushed in. Like, I'd rather watch.
You know what though?
Oh.
One final thought on the universe thing. All that shit, all those numbers could still make sense in an electric universe. Because it could actually be held at those numbers, you know?
Well, it's frequency, yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently
so it's not gravity that
we were supposed to ask you guys about social justice warriors, according to somebody on Twitter.
Oh, that's our buddy Natachi. I don't think he'll listen to this episode. Maybe he will. He loves to hate us. He's he doesn't agree with our political stance, I guess, which is fine. He still listens to the show. We're
Which is
still
what,
very
no political stance?
well. You get a little alt-righty from time to time. It shines through.
I was gonna say you said we there. You said
It's
our
his
political
his
stance.
political stance. I'm an oppressed minority. Anyway, we still try to get along. He was just kind of saying that he doesn't like it when we talk about SJWs. That's a bad word to him.
Okay. Well,
So he's disenfranchised with us, but he still loves our interview style. So he's stuck with us. He's codependent.
yeah.
Graham
I mean,
and
so
Darren.
it's okay to disagree
Sorry,
with
bro.
people. I mean, it's okay to disagree. That's
exactly.
what we're talking about. Is
Yeah.
why we're in such dire straits now, is because people can't disagree.
Yeah, maybe they should stop warrioring. And
Well,
then,
maybe he's just trying to say that if you didn't bash them, your population would grow.
Hey
Like, your
man,
listener
I was
base
saying
would grow.
forever that everyone should get along and hug each other. I've been
Because he
saying
really
that.
digs what you're saying. It's just then it throws him for a loop and he gets triggered.
Graham goes on these tirades.
So I did want to ask you guys this. I'm curious, and I've had some interaction with people from Canada, just online and stuff. And we had Brexit in 2016, and which was kind of a more. I mean, that was a conservative upswing in the UK. We had the election of Trump in 2016 as well. That was a conservative upswing, really right wing. What's going to happen in Canada?
Same thing. Same thing.
Yeah, because I'm real curious, because I mean there's a lot of stuff going on about Trudeau, and
it's happened in Alberta already.
Trudeau might actually end up squeaking out some sort of minority, but I don't think
the problem with us with our multi-party system is
no one ever really has any power. It's just a fucking mess.
Gotcha.
They're all
But the beauty about that is nothing crazy can ever happen very fast, because they're just
it's all coalition based.
But everybody wants jobs back. Really, it's pretty slow in Canada right now, and it's not getting any better. No. If we keep going like this, we're fucked.
It could be a major upset, but somehow that greasy Trudeau, I feel like he might be able to pull something off.
And the problem is there's two conservative parties. I mean, I barely know any of this. I don't even really follow it.
I think it's almost all conservative leadership for the provinces right now.
But there's two conservative parties that might steal votes, not steal votes, sorry. They might, take votes from, so instead of it just being like one or two party system like you guys have, or, they might get like 30% each, and then the other Trudeau gets in by a small margin because,
Bernie had to throw his hat in for Hillary at some point. Instead of straight up going against her.
Yeah.
So what happened to the whole thing about, the whole, like, what Jordan Peterson came up against about requiring, like, by force of law, about all the genders and all that? Like, whatever happened with that?
It passed.
So it passed.
But I think only in the East, only in Ontario.
We can't deny the Holocaust. We can't do certain things. We have to be very careful with our speech.
I think it's only in Quebec and Ontario, though.
I think technically it's only for, I don't know, it might only be for like government employees or something
official
like
capacity.
Yeah, I think that's true too.
It doesn't blame on us. I mean, honestly, if someone asks you to call them something and you don't, you're just a dick. But you probably we don't need to start making laws around that kind of stuff, because I mean, that's a slippery slope.
Well, Canada has hate speech laws already.
Yeah, we've already started making laws around our speech.
So you
which
can't
I don't
say
agree
anything hateful against anybody,
like
especially any oppressed minority.
Do they have a trial or what?
Well, there's a list of words.
Yeah, it's like if someone were to defame you, to say something about you as a private person, you could take them to court over defamation.
Or you just get suspended from hockey. I mean, my teammate in hockey got called something sarcastically, like, "Oh, aren't you beautiful?" Right. So he said in response, "Are you a fag?" And he got kicked out for like 3 games. So this is where we're at now with like men's sports in Canada.
Yeah.
Dang.
You guys, I'm sure you played contact sports before. It can get kind of heated, right? You can't even say the wrong thing.
Again, I thought we were done having this conversation.
And I would say 9
right on
10
topic.
Canadians go right along with it.
But I mean, how does it? Do you get criminal charges on you, and you go to a trial, or what? Like, how does that work? Like,
if Buddy was actually homosexual, he could have pressed charges against him.
Yeah, but he instigated it though. This is the problem. And like, where do you draw a line between calling somebody?
Well, this is why you shouldn't have laws on speech.
Yeah.
Or protected classes. It's a slippery slope.
That's the thing.
And I say that as an Indian who's a protected class to a certain extent.
So all these young guys can call me old or slow or fat or bald, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But make it, respond to somebody's comment about.
Well, no, that's not
saying,
fine.
Aren't you beautiful?
They shouldn't
or whatever.
do that because it's a dick thing to do.
But it's fine legally.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Because I'm
legally.
not protected.
Yeah, nobody should be
But
protected.
you are, for some reason.
It's because I'm one of the most depressed people in the world. Okay? All right? You guys fuck shit up. Still recover. How about just sorry?
Sorry.
So.
oh wow, we solved it right there. Guys.
So what are you, Darren? I'm curious about this.
He's part Denisovan.
I'm Ojibwe. I'm Mishkigogaming from Ojibwe, which is part of the Anishinaabe people.
Okay.
Where are they from in Canada?
Over by Lake Superior.
Okay. Cool.
Over by Ontario and stuff. Yeah.
I'm from Arizona, so I grew up with a bunch of natives. But I've heard
we
that.
prefer Indian.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
Is it not First Nations there? I thought that was the correct term. And
I'll tell you what. My
the Great
status
White
card.
North.
that I just got again, just replaced my old one, still says registered Indian on it.
Oh man. Well, maybe you can sue.
I don't mind because I prefer Indian
Over Aboriginal.
Yeah.
Yeah. First Peoples.
No, they should change India to something else, and we'll be the Indians.
I like that.
They can be the Hindians. Okay? Done.
Oh shit.
It's great.
So what about you guys? What about you guys? And these? I mean, it's interesting because you guys are the ones having to self-censor yourself, but we're the ones with the laws over here.
Right.
So it's like part of the outrage culture and the guilt by public.
Well,
public law is affecting you guys more than the actual laws are affecting us up here, unless you're playing hockey.
We feel the same way as far as not,
Are you off for 3 games?
we feel the same way as far as not being a dick, and that's how we live. My difficulty, and something we've really talked about, is how much really of just a bourgeois white people thing that is. And I've really lived my life really diverse with a bunch of different people. And it makes it hard to be politically correct a lot of times because a lot of those people aren't very politically correct. And so I have to go from a diverse environment into a non-diverse white liberal environment and censor myself with people who actually do not live with a bunch of other people and don't interact on a daily basis. It's really just more of a white bourgeois phenomenon. I mean, and if you really are, friends with people with different sexualities, different races, a lot of them
up on each other all the time.
Yeah, a lot of them are not very politically correct, so it's like my socialization, I have to, really be careful around, really liberal white people. But like everyone else actually who are those groups, is usually like we can hit it off and be pretty politically incorrect.
Right. It's kind of ironic that that's exactly what you have. You usually, he's right. When you're dealing with other people that are maybe your same social class or your same race, like as just other white people, that seems to be like where you gotta like kind of more toe the line a little bit. But when you're dealing with people that are in those classes, like you said, like that they're supposedly protecting, they're not politically correct people, and so it's this odd kind of dichotomy that's going on.
Yeah,
and it's like there's almost seems to be, to me, like this. Some of it almost seems like it's almost like a reverse paternalism.
Yeah, it's patronizing to a lot of people, and I mean, we're in Nashville, and we're kind of like in some of the most extreme gentrification in the country. It's not quite as bad as like San Francisco and stuff, but this is like this new hip city that all these people are moving to, and they, a lot of these are like upper middle class and up, white liberal people who are actually moving and displacing and actually engaging in class warfare against other people. But they're more, they're more concerned about being politically correct and being good people than they are about being what they think is good people instead of their actual actions, which is actually oppressing poor and protected groups. I mean, they are actually doing things to disenfranchise people, but they have this patronizing attitude like they're better. So it's very complex and really, really irritating.
That's the part that I don't like about this whole thing is that, the virtue signaling and the outrage enables you to be a troll and affect somebody else. Like if free speech was totally allowed, then you really couldn't get in trouble for somebody trolling you. Like, it opens up, and I have a hard time explaining this. You've heard me talk about this before, Darren, but somebody, I think it was Thaddeus Russell, that explained it really well on, and troll's probably not the right word, but you can go in and fake. I can go into somebody's chat room and fake being, racist or outraged or whatever. And it's going to get that person in trouble. Like it opens it up for all kinds of hoaxing.
Right. And we're just giving a lot of these people too much power.
And that's not really.
Chat rooms are a good example though, because you'll go into some where the moderators are they swing a heavy ban hammer, And so just kind of willy-nilly whenever they want, they kick people out and they cause problems and they say, oh, you use that one, stop being a bully. So now I'm going to kick you out, which to me is a bully tactic. And so then everybody in there is either towing the line or they're really mad at them. So it creates a lot of struggle and strife and sheep at the same time, that follow along and toe the line and don't say anything so they don't get banned. We're like in the Grimerica chats, like I don't, like we kind of toyed with kicking people out, but that was always just, I thought, a joke. Like I can't think of anybody.
I like to kick Garrett out from time to time just for fun.
Yeah, but it seems like for the most part, everybody, a lot of people that come in comment on the fact that everything is just, it's like a real community.
Yeah, or you can make up,
share
or you can make up lies about somebody. Like, look at the banking thing, like this activism that's, you're saying, oh, that, you shouldn't be lending money to this guy because of this or that, and who knows if it's true, but it's too late at that point. Like, as soon as the media gets hold of some lie, it's too late. It doesn't even matter if it's a lie or the truth. So
yeah,
it's a slippery slope.
Motherfuckers.
Well, it's scary
Slippery
because
slopes do exist, Scott Adams.
I feel like a lot of the younger generation, I mean, we have, First Amendment here, and I feel like a lot of them really just don't believe in it, and it scares the shit out of me because I'm a free speech fundamentalist, and have always been, and I believe in that. I was taught, and I believe in that free marketplace of ideas where, the good ideas are supposed to win out, and you tolerate really bad ideas and terrible shit because you want your own freedom, and that's the same thing with religious freedom too. So.
I you can shine the light on the hate instead of shoving it underground. This is what for it to fester underground. I mean, this is what's happening.
The problem is tolerance.
What do you mean?
I think
People don't have enough tolerance for different shit anymore, and they talk about everything else is intolerant, and they've just got it completely fucking backwards. It's ironic.
I think one of the things that really bugs me, we'll go back to the SJWs here for a second, is that there's a constant redefinition of terms to where you can't even keep up anymore. A good case in point that I saw was that, when you think of the word like, or the statement like I'm colorblind, meaning that I don't see race, I think that's a pretty positive thing. But I actually saw something one time on Facebook.
People are mad about that.
On Facebook, incidentally, where they say that no, that's not a right term. You can't use that anymore because I can't even remember the justification that they gave. But I was just like, I posted on there like, look, guys, this is Orwellian.
It's arbitrary.
You're just redefining language constantly. So how can anybody actually keep up with what they're actually supposed to be talking about? And in doing that, you just completely just weakening the language. And it's like they constantly, it seems like there's this like people are just finding oppression where it doesn't exist, but they're not actually doing anything about oppression where it does. And they're
creating oppression in the process.
And they're creating oppression in the process. And it's just, it's mind-boggling to the point where like I'm just throwing my hands and like say I'm not even going to argue because it really does kind of scare me how just we made the joke earlier about Stalin and the censorship of pictures. I mean, this is the stuff that the Soviet Union did. And that's where Orwell borrowed that whole idea, the newspeak and all that, of just like totally deconstructing language and just always giving it a new meaning and it never being anything the same. And it's just that in and of itself is just like a scary slope.
Yeah, I've explained a lot of that to my wife, who's a midwife, and she's a little bit younger, so she was going through school and kind of being indoctrinated into all this over the last 5 years. And I would point out things like that and how silly it was, like when Trudeau called out that one woman for saying mankind, and he said, oh, we call it people kind now. And how funny that was. She didn't get the joke. Well, then about a year ago, the Alberta Association of Midwives said that we're changing it from pregnant women to pregnant people, and you have to begin referring to it as such. And my wife showed me that, and I laughed. And then, of course, my 7-year-old daughter was like, "What are you laughing at?" And then we explained it to her. I explained it. because I do that. And the look on her face, she couldn't figure out like how that works, because she's just kind of learning, how it all works.
Well, maybe
Naturally.
she's not a
in
girl.
reality.
Maybe she's a boy.
She's stuck in reality. No. And so then she's trying to get it wrapped around her head, just like, how does that work? And I'm like,
So
man, I
wait.
can't explain it to you, because the whole thing is like
A
this
fucking
new
mess.
thought.
How can your wife still be a midwife? Shouldn't she be a mid person?
No, a
Mid spouse?
no, midwife just means someone
a center wife,
someone
or-
who helps. Yeah, I've done that too, but it has a certain definition. But I just think that's hilarious that you have to refer to them as pregnant people.
Which makes
That's where Canada is now.
which makes
What
no,
I-
makes no
Conservative
sense.
province.
Yeah.
What I don't get is like mankind is it's all of man and woman. Like
Mhm.
woman,
Mhm.
man. There's the word is almost
But
the same.
they
it
already
just has
don't
a
like
woe
the
over
fact
top.
that they're just an add-on to man. That's the problem.
But it's ridiculous. Man, it's in
Should just be
context,
man
it's
and
all
woe.
of
Man and
human.
woe.
Human, woman, man. It's all the same.
You know
right?
what? It should be woe and man, and woman should be everybody.
Well,
Solve another one. No, he's not giving me that one.
I think in
Fuck
some
you.
of I think in the secret linguistics of the Nation of Islam and outgrowths of that, I think they say that woe man, that woman means that woman brings woe to man, and that's the secret of the word.
Jeez. Well, we just changed the
Oh,
name of
boy.
manholes around here. They're no longer manholes.
Maintenance
They're
holes.
maintenance holes now.
Maintenance holes. And I was
Yeah.
telling her that, and she was just like, well, that seems reasonable. It should be. You should take the gender out of it.
It's
And
not
I was
though.
like,
it's man
I was
is
like,
mankind.
I was like, but
Again
men
with the
don't want to
mankind.
send their women into the sewers. Like, when was the last time you mowed the lawn? Like,
Oh,
Oh,
boy.
do you see what I'm saying? There's certain jobs where you just don't want to send your women. You do the dirty work so that
Well,
they
for
don't
one,
have to.
They're
Well,
not
that's-
your
that's-
women.
It's chivalrous. It's a manhole. Like, you have to carry
That's the
heavy
problem.
stuff
She's
up
not
and down that
yours.
ladder. Like, some things men are just cut out for it.
We like to beat up on a lot of these people, but also
Whatever.
I think it goes without
When it's
saying
running
that-
into cannon fodder, it's a different story, though.
Yeah. I think it goes without saying, though, like me and Adam are kind of just against all this tribalism, and we really don't think too kindly of the authoritarian right-wingers either.
Yeah.
I mean, here you have this, half of the people flying flags now, it's these, like, this special black and white flag with a blue line on it. It's like a police supporting American flag. I mean, there's nothing more fascist I can think of than actually change the flag into a police emblem.
Yep.
And,
that just screams like let's just have a police state.
And you have all these, all these like paramilitary organizations now. You see
Right.
these 3%er decals everywhere, and these people are like self-appointing themselves that they can just show up wherever with guns and their walkie-talkies, and they're gonna, they're like appointed, and they're gonna uphold the Constitution with firearms, and it's absolutely terrifying on the other side.
The other
too.
end.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's horrible.
when the Ferguson protests were going on, the Oath Keepers showed up, and that could have potentially have been an extremely horrible thing.
That's
If
really
someone
what
had gotten shot by one of those guys. Or
That's
vice
what's scary
versa.
is if in America we have people, these paramilitaries of different extremes actually fighting in the streets.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
and
Weimar
eventually-
Republic, guys.
Yeah,
That's what that is.
Yeah, it is scary because you wonder how long they're going to be able to go without retaliating to Antifa types that are beating people up in the streets. Like eventually, shit's going to get real pretty quick.
Well, we've already had the Antifa fighting the Rude Boys and all this kind of crap. I mean, this is just. I mean,
but it
is
hasn't
literally.
it hasn't gotten out of control yet.
Yeah,
like
it
eventually,
hasn't.
it's gonna get out
It
of
hasn't.
control.
I mean, in the Weimar Republic, before the Nazis took over in Germany, that's exactly what you had. I mean, you had the extreme right wing and the extreme left wing fighting each other in the streets. I mean, and that's that's a scary prospect. I mean, we've got stuff going on right now, guys, that is, I mean, extremely frightening. I mean, we have this whole these ICE detention centers, and we've got Trump, calling for congresswomen to be sent back home, that 3 of which were born here, to go back to their own country. I mean, that stuff like
fix
that
it,
is
fix it, and then come back and tell us how to do it.
yeah. I mean, this is I mean, stuff like that is just, I mean, to me, is disturbing just as much.
And a lot
And
of
the polarization.
theocrats who think that Trump is appointed by God.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really deep right now
Yeah.
and going on like crazy. We've got a few lines.
5D chess.
Yeah.
Graham's all in, though. This is a thing.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. I mean, it's just you know,
We need to intervene.
it's hard to imagine that those people they do seem to hate America. Like a lot of the politicians seem to hate America, but I see where you guys are saying there's an extreme on both sides. But I mean,
even if they
trying
do,
to get people to vote for you when you hate the country.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's wild that like now, if you hear somebody say, "I don't want to get too political," but you know, the very next thing that's coming is
It's political.
fuck Trump.
yeah.
Well,
you know,
And everybody is okay with that. And if you say anything at all that says, "Well, that seems kind of harsh, don't you think?" then they just jump on you. Where if you would have done that about Obama, if you would have pointed out the ICE detention centers under Obama at the time, it was just like
that he deported more people
crickets.
than Trump.
Crickets. If you talked about him supporting the war in Yemen, nothing. Nobody wanted to talk about it or hear about it or nothing. All the drone strikes. I mean, there's
Right.
a lot of
And,
shady
yeah.
shit.
That's the
And
problem
then
I
a
have.
lot
That's
of-
the problem I have.
A lot
Is they
of
don't.
executive
It's out of
orders
what
that-
Trump does is out of context in comparison to Obama. I mean,
What
there's-
Alex Jones was really complaining about was all these things that Obama was putting with executive orders that were like, the next president is going to be a total tyrant because of the way they're setting all this up. And
Exactly.
then
There
for
you go.
Trump
That's
why
it.
they're,
That's it.
that's why
Those
they're so
reins.
pissed.
Well, this is the whole thing with our two-party system right now, is that we have the whole Republicans good and Democrats bad mentality, Democrats good, Republicans bad mentality. You know, this is the mentality that we have, and we don't have anybody else. We don't have a lot of people that are more the civil libertarians are looking at all this and saying that, you know, no,
You need
I
John
mean,
McCaffrey.
misuse of power is misuse of power. It doesn't matter which one is in there. So like Dinesh D'Souza, you know, he makes this documentary where he made some actually really great points about Obama and what he was doing, and he said, you know, well, this is really concerning, guys, what is going on with these executive orders and the growth of this kind of imperial presidency and the reach and the power that they have. But yet Dinesh D'Souza was entirely willing, and others like him were entirely willing to hand that over to Donald Trump. And you don't think that guy is not going to use anything in his means? And I'll address the Congresswoman thing. Even if they do hate America, even if they do, calling for like people that 3 of which were actually born here to essentially be deported, that's as bad.
No, he didn't say that.
Yeah,
You got to be careful. You don't take that out of context. He just said, "Why don't you go back and fix it and tell me, and then come back and tell us how it's done."
But I mean,
he didn't call for any deport. Like, you know, this is like, you know, CNN taking stuff out of context. You got to look at the whole tweet and be careful you don't just take that one line.
But he's also playing to his base though, too, guys. I
Oh,
mean,
it's a total troll.
That's
It's a total troll. Don't get me
exactly
wrong.
you're exactly right.
It's a trolling tweet.
Yeah, but
I think the reality
but there
shows
is a
that it's
slippery
Trump's
slope
controlling
there.
those 4.
Yeah, there's a
what I-
slippery slope there, and and another thing too, like, you know, I will agree with you guys 100%. Like Trump, I mean, he played the media like a friggin' fiddle, and he's still doing it.
That's what he did with that
little
tweet. Is he's
too
got
easy,
he's got all the media focused on them, which is what he wants.
But it's interesting how all this kind of stuff, how he started doing that right when all this Epstein stuff came out, and now there's footage of Trump hanging out with Epstein. See, all the whole, you know, the QAnon people, they're all in about, like, you know, Hillary and Bill hanging out with Epstein, but they won't say anything about Trump. Well, Trump was hanging out with Epstein too. And as soon as all this kind of stuff is going on with Epstein, and like the guy that basically gave Epstein that like nice sweetheart deal became Trump's Secretary of Labor.
Yeah. It's supposed to be any
and
day
then all of a
now.
sudden he comes out with that tweet about these 4 congresswomen. That's just, I mean, that was just, to me, that was just pure deflection.
Well, supposedly this is any
I
day
think all
now
that
these
goes way
documents coming
deeper
out.
than that. But I don't even think anything's
it
gonna
goes
happen with
really
Epstein.
deep.
Epstein's a Google bomb to cover up the fact that Rob Epstein is the researcher right now is testifying in Congress saying that Google's bias could be costing 10 million votes in election. And that's just an election. Who knows what it's costing in the court of public opinion on everything.
What is that? I meant to ask you about that. What does that have to do with the Epstein last name being the same?
Well, it's the same thing they did when Fast and the Furious was all over the place, right? Fast and the Furious was blowing up, so they killed that fucking head actor from Fast and the Furious, and you can't use the search engines to find. All of a sudden, it gets completely overtaken by search terms, and right now, I think that's what they're doing with Epstein. I think Epstein will end up either walking, or they'll even just sacrifice Epstein, because who gives a fuck?
I think
no
they will.
one's gonna be able to find this guy.
I think they will sacrifice Epstein because all Epstein is a pimp. He's just a middleman.
Do you not think there's going to be anything released in these documents, supposedly?
Not that's well, here's the thing. If anything big happens with Epstein, then we're in the middle of something fucking major, because my take is that Epstein is probably Mossad.
Yeah. A lot of people said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Peter Dale Scott said that. Yeah.
Well, they don't even know where he got his
took down
fortune.
The towers.
Yeah. They don't even know where he got his fortune still. I mean, they're still trying to figure that out. I mean, it's pretty wild. I just never thought that this would be, actually the focus
like
of the mainstream
weird
media.
international incident to unpack it. It's like
I think there's a real possibility the guy was some kind of intelligence asset.
Yeah.
If essentially, I can't remember his name, but the guy who just was Secretary of Labor that just basically resigned because of all this. Yeah, Acosta. Yeah, I mean he was essentially told, and a very not to do anything.
So that's where I think it's like I don't think we'll ever know. Because any actual court or negotiation or anything that's going on is not fucking happening in the public.
Yeah.
It's happening in war rooms where they're like, listen, motherfuckers, what are you doing?
Yeah, me and Adam talked about how, the biggest thing the KGB used to do is try to get people in honey traps and expose them as being homosexual. And now that that's not a big deal, this is like the last taboo thing that they can really use to destroy lives is, messing with kids.
Yeah, it's almost,
It seems like it's the natural go-to for these sick bastards now.
Well, the problem, I don't know.
Sure,
I mean, it goes
explain why
pretty
your
deep.
Congress does a lot of the stuff it seems to do,
Well,
right?
that's the
It's
thing,
like, how
is
can you actually think that's a good idea for anybody?
There's a lot of blackmail out there.
Yeah.
So if you want to fix that, you've got to wipe out all the data and get rid of it and say, okay, now everybody is back to being free again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't do it.
So instead of destroying the entire government, you just wipe out the Epstein files and say, okay, no one's got any dirt on anyone anymore. Just try and do the right thing, you fucks.
Well, I think it will go so much deeper though than just Epstein. I mean, he's just the tip of the iceberg.
No, Nick.
But that's what I don't think we get to find out.
I think NXIVM was the farm team for him too. I mean, he's connected to NXIVM and all that as well. They were the farm team for him, and I mean,
if you do find out, then maybe it is really that crazy civil war that's going on in the U.S. right now. There's that weird rumor that the NSA is battling the CIA.
Yeah, there is
So
intelligence.
I would
civil
argue
wars
that
going on. Absolutely,
Epstein starts releasing with high-profile people. If high-profile people start getting arrested, then maybe something is happening, and there's been something to that whole thing, which has kind of been in the back of my head from day one, because I always thought it was kind of weird from day one that everyone started calling Trump a Nazi, because it was like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, he doesn't really seem that Nazi-ish, but it does make a lot of sense if you're like, holy fuck, this motherfucker is going to be having me arrested in 3 years. We better start planting the Nazi seed now. But that was my old thought. Now I think Trump's just another part of the system.
Yeah. Well,
he's just reeling back in. That one base has gotten so far removed from the mainstream grasp. They needed to throw in a wild card to rope them fucking back in, and now they're back to all in. Right-left paradigm is stronger than ever.
That whole NXIVM thing came from a multi-level marketing company that actually just morphed into a cult. The company was the recruiting grounds, and they figure, they're already brainwashing people. And so then I guess the guy decided somewhere down the line, well, shit, I'm just going to make this a sex slavery cult.
Has NXIVM been a bigger story in Canada than it has been here? Because I know there's like a lot of Canadian actresses that were involved with NXIVM.
Well, I think our prime minister is somehow involved in that, isn't he, Darren?
Really?
I don't know. I don't have TV or cable.
I better be careful about
anything like that.
Yeah, but it is. I think it's been a bigger story than down there, probably. I mean,
Yeah, I think so.
Especially if it's. I mean, especially because the media. I mean, the media doesn't want to talk about any of this stuff, so they're not going to address any of this.
No Agenda's been all over it, and that's where I get my news. That's it. That's my source of news. Is the No Agenda podcast. I try not to go anyplace. I don't have cable. I don't have a TV. I'm getting the fuck off Netflix here right away. I haven't watched anything on Netflix in a couple of months. I'm just trying to stay off of all of it because I don't see any evidence that any of it is a good idea.
What's your main complaint about Netflix?
Well, my main complaint is just it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
In Canada,
I could
it's
be doing
much
better
different.
things with my time, for one. For two, it's probably just propaganda. I mean, I think everything's propaganda. That's kind of where I've ended up in 5 or 6 years of doing the podcast. The history's fake. The news is fake. The only reason that there's entertainment at this point is probably to try and, and I'm not saying everyone. I mean, there's still good creators out there that are trying to do the right thing. But I think for the main part, all the movies, all the big major motion pictures are bought and paid for by product placement and by Department of Defense and by whoever the fuck.
It's
It's all propaganda. It's all fucking propaganda. History's fake and everything else is propaganda. And that's my honest fucking opinion.
Yeah, I'd have to double that.
So I just don't. There's no point in me sitting here and complaining about it and saying that if I'm still going to go home and watch Netflix for 6 hours. So
Yeah.
I just don't.
Drop out.
It's just not a part of my life. Like I said, I went and I torrented the first season of Ancient Aliens so I could watch those again because I felt like doing that. Other than that, if I'm watching something, it's usually I'll watch movies with the kids, or I'll watch something on YouTube, which is, I'll find a documentary, and a lot of them are replays from old stuff that maybe used to be on history or something like that. But, I don't.
Netflix here is terrible, though. It's like 10% of what you get in the States. There's so many movies that I'm just like The Matrix. You want to watch The Matrix? There's only the first one.
Yeah, I can't
None of
even
the rest.
focus on it anymore. You know what it was? Is when I read Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. And he's like, he does this little experiment to me. And he's like, okay. He's like, you make up all your own definitions here. He's like, let's start by coming up with a dollar value of what you think your time's worth. Okay. And once you got that, write that down. And then he's like, okay, now come up with, think how many hours a day you're wasting. And he's like, I'm not going to tell you what's a waste of time. You come up with that all on your own. That's up to you. How many hours? Now times that by 7. So take and at the time, I was already quite a bit better, but not as far down the road as I am now. But when I think back to like 10 years ago, if I would have doing that, I was like, fuck, I'm watching 7 hours of TV a night probably. And it's like, okay, so I'd say the average American, they say, is 5 hours a day. So let's use that number. So take 5 hours a day, times it by 7 days a week. That's 35 hours a week, times that by 52 weeks a year. And, just start timesing that by, say, $20 or $30 an hour. And start taking that as potential left on the table. And that's kind of where I look at those New Thought books as being a good force in society, where that's wasting in a time where you've got more options than we've probably ever had in history to forge your own way, to do your own thing. And I mean, sure, we can complain about having to do it on the backs of some of these other companies, but hey, at least we can do it, because I'll tell you what, our grandfathers didn't have that option.
It's pretty materialistic of you, though, to put all your hours into making money.
Well, no, it's just, but I'm not calling hanging out with my family a waste of time. I'm not calling hanging out with my kids a waste of time. It's by your own definition.
Yeah.
And you attach that dollar value just because that hits home more than most
He's
things.
also a college professor, so he's talking to 20-year-olds that kind of need to wrap their head around that.
If I say you're wasting 2,000 hours a year, it just doesn't hit home the same as, But here's the thing. Now, if you were to take that 5 hours a day and extrapolate it over a year, and then maybe extrapolate that over a 50-year lifetime, that might hit home.
Yeah, it made me think of your New Thought episode. And you guys talked about that, about how that, in this day and age where money's so important now, that the New Thought became about manifesting material goods. So, and that you mentioned those books that Darren's been reading. So I was trying to make that connection a little bit.
So that'd be 2,000 days over. If you watch TV for 5 hours a day right now, Just say you're watching TV or playing video games 5 hours a day. Over the course of 25 years, that's 1,895 days solid of television or video games. So that way you can do it too. The money way, I think, just sort of hit home to me when I was like, Jesus, even if I was working fucking a $20 an hour job for those hours, I'd be making an extra 50 grand a year. Is it worth 50 grand a year to have cable?
Especially when it's so hard to make ends meet these days. I mean, it's not like, I think it's way worse than it was 20, 30, 50 years ago. With the costs have gone up, 4 or 5 times on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And the wages haven't gone up to meet it. I mean, it's way harder.
How to get the Discord chats to pay me. That's definitely true.
We'll put you on the payroll one day, buddy. Grimerica.ca/support.
How many hours am I wasting on there again?
Well, you're number 3 ranked in the chat.
Oh, man.
You wouldn't want to check the amount of hours or days you guys spend in there. It's fucking crazy.
But it's actually good though, because you're keeping your mind going.
Just the audience needs to remember
really.
though. Audience needs to remember that you are
Exactly.
not wasting your time by listening to hours and hours of our podcasts.
Exactly.
Right, that's right.
It's very, very
That's
fulfilling, intellectually stimulating. It's
I
an
agree.
alternative to just
And
zoning
with
out.
audio, you can do other things.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
the thing.
And we're not trying to get over on you. I think that's kind of that's why I think podcasts and independent content is uniquely positioned to take over. I think people are kind of sick of overproduced and overpolished anyway, and they're sick of advertisers, and they're sick of everything getting crammed down their throats. You know what I mean? And they're more just like, they'd rather
Real
just listen to
conversation.
you guys interview someone for an hour and a half and not have to go to commercial every fucking 15 minutes, and you can't say these words, or people can actually finish their thoughts. It's kind of like this weird merger. I used to think it was crazy when they said that by 2030, the lines between hobbies and occupations will have merged to the point that it'll be hard to see. And that was one of Kurzweil's predictions. And I used to think that was a crazy thought. And now when I look towards that as being 10 years out, it's like, man, there's a measurable percentage of people in my life that are doing what they want for a living. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Now, is that people that have gravitated into my life because of my new way of thinking, because I started thinking that it was a possibility to unplug from that machine and do my own way? I don't know. Because like you say, the people that read those books and nothing happens, you don't really hear from them so much. Right. I think part of what happened with The Secret and stuff like that is it got spun into that, there's so much entitlement in today's world that it's just like, sit on the couch and wish you were rich. It's okay. How would you start by sitting on the couch and think how you can add some value to the world?
Right.
Start there.
Well, that idea that that hermetic idea of that you are a part of the mind of God, and that a lot of people, inventors, entrepreneurs, artists, say that these ideas kind of come from somewhere else, and being open to that. And I think that's the genesis of it all. That you have to have like an idea. You can't just sit around wanting something for nothing. You've got to kind of ask the universe first to provide you with something that you can then ask value for.
And you got to hustle like a motherfucker.
Hell yeah.
You got to hustle like a motherfucker. And that's where that doing the affirmations and thinking of it, I mean, that's where I think that even if there's no magic in the world, that just sort of puts you in that thought process. When you wake up in the morning and you do your affirmations that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Now I'm starting my day thinking, you know what? I'm on my way to work right now, but one day I'm going to do this. As opposed to, motherfucker, I hate my job. I fucking can't wait to the weekend. I'm going to get a 60-pounder of whiskey and pass out fucking drunk and, just keep doing this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see because, I know a ton of people and I see a ton of people that are just, they're in that. And, is ignorance bliss? I don't know. But I know I like to think that I'm a happier person now than with this outlook on life than I was, 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's the evidence.
Absolutely.
The feeling of freedom and the feeling of more contentment. To me, it's not necessarily happy, it's content and being okay with the moment. I'm not looking forward, like not being obsessed with the weekend instead of like just being okay with like tonight.
Yeah, well, that's the whole
Being
thing
now.
is, reality as it is.
Yeah.
And being equanimous in the moment. every moment, no matter what comes.
Bingo bango. Should we wrap it up?
I don't know.
It's about-
Guess
we're about 2 hours.
It's been awesome chatting with you guys. I mean, I was going
Oh
to say
yeah,
that when
nice to meet you guys.
when you guys were talking about that other stuff, and I was thinking the light and the positive thing is getting to talk with people like yourselves, and like, you know, regardless of what
Oh,
our
the
opinions are,
communities.
is having these. We can even argue
Yeah,
and disagree
absolutely.
about certain things, but it's like it's just fantastic to have these. You know,
It's a free discussion.
And
It's
it
a
seems like
free
it's-
exchange of ideas.
yeah. Yeah, and it seems like it's people like yourselves and like the Conspiracy Farm or Tinfoil Hat or THC, like people that are
Bros.
doing this. That's just fantastic to be able to talk.
Oh, and the community. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the main takeaway we've got is the community that's come up around the Grimerica show.
But
is
without
just
getting
fucking
tribal. Like, I
amazing.
think the thing we're missing is that tribalism that you guys are talking about, the negative part
The
of
new media
tribalism,
doesn't
right?
have it.
Like,
Mhm.
we don't need
Yeah,
your
we've got a
fucking
lot of different
listeners.
people who don't agree with each other on a lot of stuff who all
Yeah.
listen to us. I mean,
yeah.
Even like the crossover between the shows, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
competition.
yeah,
We don't need to steal your listeners, or, you know, there's not that. And that's not just us and you guys. I just noticed that across the fucking media.
yeah,
Yeah.
Across the medium. Like, we're in touch with most of the shows in our genres. And, you know, they're all saying, hey, let's do Swapcast, let's do this, let's promote each other, let's help each other. I mean, to me, that's all different variations of New Thought.
Yeah, there's definitely there's a revolution going on, I think, with the podcasting world. I think it's very much a new frontier still.
and it's pretty much the oldest thing known to man. It's us just getting together and
Right.
talking. I mean,
Right.
what can be
Exactly.
like, you know?
That's a great point.
Do you
That's
guys have a
great point.
Discord?
No, we do
No.
not.
Well, you should come join ours. We'll give you special colors.
So
Okay,
do you guys
cool.
think that podcasting is still up on the rise? Like, do you
Yeah,
guys still
people get
potential?
hooked in there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's times that I think that I might get discouraged and think, well, maybe there's like, you know, I'll see like the millions and millions of podcasts that are out there, but then I kind of look at like the numbers and I think, you know, well, I think we're doing pretty well. I don't.
And
think
then you get
that's,
a
know,
personal message from somebody, you know,
Yeah.
really connected with something, and
right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the shows I just listened. I think it was, I think Graham, I think you said this, that there's millions of podcasts, but a lot of them aren't getting past a certain episode number or something like that.
Yeah.
That
93% of podcasts never get past episode 7.
right.
Damn.
And, you know, both of us are way past that. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people,
Yeah, and we
though,
like to do it for the conversation, which is important.
I think there's, I
We
think
might
there's,
hit 400 this year.
shit.
yeah, we'll hit 300 soon. But there's a certain stamina, I think, that goes into this, and really just like dedication into doing it. And I think certain, you know, some people say, well, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then they don't see the immediate return on it that they think that they should, and then they give up. And, you know,
Yeah.
I think that's unfortunate, because there does seem to be there does seem to be some, like, a little frustration that I have sometimes in the fact that, you know, we are these guys that have been doing this and doing this and doing this and for years now, and, you know, you'll have this famous person that will come up and start their own podcast, and then all of a sudden they just get millions of listeners instantly, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, come on, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they're
that's-
few and far between. Though.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be, though. I
Yeah,
think.
you gotta stay
I
positive.
mean, for
and,
most people, it's got to be 2 or 3 years of fucking trucking it out before
Yep.
you're gonna start to see any real return.
gotta keep that
Yep.
positive mental attitude.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of that. To me, that's another variation of that New Thought of just being able to stick with something for years and doing it every week and having that dedication.
Not be attached
Not
to the
ever
result.
knowing if it's gonna be
Successful. or not.
successful or not, financially or otherwise. And there's something weird about just putting yourself out in the world.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I feel like, you know, there's something therapeutic about it. When you can put yourself out in the world and people can say, I can, you know, like you just for who you are. You can't take that for granted, man. We love every single one of our listeners. We couldn't do it without those guys. There'd be no point in doing the show
Yep. Same
Hell yeah.
here. Same here.
because no one would come on. That way, tell your friends and support the show, though. Grimerica.ca/support. What's your guys' support link?
We could Patreon.
Patreon.com/Conspirinormal. We're revamping Conspirinormal.com right now. Got some big announcements on the way.
Yeah.
You guys are doing an event too, aren't you?
Yeah. That's the
big announcement. You want to go for it, Adam?
Big announcement. Yeah, well, I'll just say it right now, I guess. That's fine. We are putting on an event here in Nashville on October 19th called the Strange Realities Conference. And we're going to have several people that we've had on the show quite a lot. Actually, we've got Tim Banal coming, Joshua Cutchin. I guess you guys had on not too long ago. Timothy Renner, who's the host of the Strange Familiars podcast, also an author. Guy Malone, and a good friend of ours named Joe that's also going to be demonstrating some ghost hunting technology that he has. And I'm going to speak probably just briefly.
Ooh,
but
nice.
Then a party with bands at night.
Yeah. And then there may be 2 more speakers jumping on here in the next couple of weeks. So that's October 19th here in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's great. Good job.
Exciting. Yeah. Fantastic. Congratulations. Good luck. I know those will be a nerve-wracking few months for you. I hope everything goes well. We just finished one, and it was a fucking couple near heart attacks, but everything went well.
Yeah, we're hoping that
we're gonna do smaller ones.
Off.
Yeah, we're gonna do smaller ones. We did like a 10-day one, and it's just too much. I think we'll do like weekends and something like you're doing, where you get multiple people, and it's a little easier to logistically organize, and then we can do more smaller ones throughout. You know, I'd like to do sort of themed ones, like with guests, and maybe one on spirituality and magic, and one on deeper conspiracies and symbolism or something like that, and maybe we'll do one on. But there's so many topics.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're going.
Got one planned. Do you want to talk about one planned?
We got the one coming up in April, with Dave Matheson, Brandon Powell.
Cool.
Check out the website, contact@thecabin.com. All the details there. It's already half sold out, so they don't fuck around.
Is that going to be in Colorado again?
It's in Utah.
Utah? Okay, cool.
It's between Bryce and Zion. So we're going to do one night and do all the star myths and some sky watching in Bryce, and then Zion. And then during the day, we'll do some Wim Hof breathing and some ice cold plunges and stuff like that with Brandon Powell.
Rad. Cool.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show, guys. It's been a blast. We'll have to keep doing these.
Yeah, we should.
Thank you guys.
Anytime.
Thank you for having us.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Adios.
Adios, mofos.
If you would like to help the show, please consider becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/Conspirinormal, or leave a one-time donation at Conspirinormal.com. And please check out our YouTube channel, Conspirinormal Podcast.